Hello, how are you?
Good.
I'm good. Yeah, how about that?
Because it's just traditional
Wrestling, yeah.
It's like they start off with
Yeah,
a square
sumo
dance.
or something.
I was thinking more of a square dance. Overalls.
Sounds like you're speaking.
What is all of this? Oh, I know. I forgot about this. The governor, I'm rumors.
That's pretty extreme when you start to think about it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's good. Devastation.
I'm sorry, where? In the attorney drawer. Oh.
That's just the monitor. It's just
She's right there.
doesn't drop.
City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Here.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Here.
Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson.
Here.
Alderman Holmes.
Here.
Alderman Tendem.
Here.
Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Welcome to the Monday, May 20th, 2013 meeting of the Evanston City Council. The first order of business is the mayor's public announcements and proclamations. Tiara, are you here yet? Not yet. Okay, let's go to second. Southeast Evanston Neighbors donation for tree planting.
Mayor Tisdall, members of the City Council, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Richard Weiland, President of the Southeast Evanston Association, SEA. For over 50 years, SEA has worked to defend and enhance the quality of life for Evanston residents. We recognize and revel in the fact that Evanston is not merely a bedroom suburb, but a vibrant and varied city that encompasses the arts, good food, recreational facilities and green space, great transportation, wide-ranging retail establishments, and other commercial development. SEA was deeply engaged in the development of Evanston's master plans for the downtown area and the lakefront. We have served as advocates and resources for such issues as the quiet enjoyment of the lakefront by all Evanston residents, the non-proliferation of bed and breakfast establishments in residential areas, the careful examination of putting offshore wind farms in the lake, and the effective use of TIFs to promote commercial development in Evanston. We are similarly advocates for a greener Evanston, and we support the creation of a comprehensive tree ordinance that is more in line with other North Shore suburbs. We've also been reaching out beyond the Southeast Evanston area. In the past few months, we've conducted visits with State Representative Robin Gable, with our own Aldermen Judy Fisk and Melissa Wynn, 4th Ward Alderman Don Wilson, and 7th Ward Alderman Jane Grover. We hope to visit with more of you in the months to come. As part of our initiative and in the interests of a greener Evanston, SEA's board recently decided to fund the planting of a tree in each of Evanston's 9 wards. We've been working with Paul D'Agostino, head of Evanston Forestry, to put this program together and to move forward. Paul was the featured speaker last fall at the SEA annual meeting, speaking on the battle to save Evanston's trees. With his guidance, this coming Friday, our 9 trees will be planted in parks in each of the city's wards. I'm here tonight to present SEA's check to the city to fund these trees. I'm joined by our Vice President, Ann Cordes, and by SEA board members Ann Burkett, Doug Geyer, Ted Glasso, Mike Myers, and Judith Ramey. Our check. Thank you for the opportunity to do this.
And please, come on, we need pictures. We need to spread the word, and more organizations need to do this.
But the rest of the members come up.
The members who are here, Mayor.
Come on up.
There are a few more, yeah. Maybe Paul's here.
Make it look as if being in a city council meeting is fun. Come on.
Everybody say trees. Ted, we can go with you.
Thank you so much. And next on the agenda, we might as well. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you to the Southeast Evanston Association from all the residents of Evanston, particularly those who enjoy Torgerson Park, which is a pocket park next to the Metro, kind of around the tracks from Dominic's store on Green Bay. And the residents around Torgerson Park will be doing some new gardens on funding these new gardens in honor of Leonard Zach, who was a longtime resident along there, and this wonderful tree from the Southeast Evanston Association will be part of this improved landscape at Torgerson Park. So thank you very much.
And I'd like to say thank you all. It's a very symbolic donation, symbolic of your commitment to the entire city, not just to your neighborhoods. And so I think it's an absolutely phenomenal idea, and thank you very much for doing this. And please spread the word about how much fun it is to come to City Council and give us a check to plant trees. Thank you. Next on the agenda is employee recognition.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, we're here this evening to recognize the service of several of our long-term employees. And Mayor, if you'll join me in the well. And Marty Lyons, our Assistant City Manager and Director of Administrative Services, Chief Financial Officer, will sort of be our Master of Ceremonies for this portion of the meeting.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, Deputy Clerk Green. Tonight we are here to honor several employees who devoted their careers and working lives to the city of Evanston. These employees represent nearly all of our departments. Those that have been able to make it, we have a list of those who could be here and those who couldn't. And they show all of the many and varied services that we provide to the citizens of Evanston. Tonight we'll be congratulating members from the Community and Economic Development Department, Library, Public Works, Recreation and Community Services, Utilities, Health, and Police Departments. Oh, and the Mayor and City Council's department. From the day all of these employees started working for the city up to tonight, they've displayed a tremendous amount of professionalism and loyalty, especially when I look at, we have a 40-year tonight, so that is a lot of loyalty. A lot has changed. And one thing that has not changed is these employees' commitment to the city of Evanston through all of these years. So on behalf of the City Council, Mayor, and City Manager, I'd like to read off our list of employees receiving awards tonight. Okay. From our library, we have receiving awards for 25 years of service, Constance Hennigan. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. Please come up. Please stay up so we can get a picture of you and all the members in the department. Also from the library, Paul Gottschalk. We can do all 25, all 25s? You want to do all 25? All right. Also from the library, receiving 30 years of service, Marlene Meyer. Next, we'll do our Public Works Department. For Public Works, receiving awards for 25 years of service, Alvin Deasley. And Paul D'Agostino.
That's your driver.
Next, we'll do Recreation and Community Services. For 25 years of service, we have Robert Lloyd. And Larry Daniels. And for 35 years of service, we have Richard Zarski. Next, from our Utilities Department, For 30 years of service, Jay Henderson. Yvonne will do health next. We have two from the health department, both with 35 years of service. That's fantastic. Georgina Val-Starling. And Cheryl Henley. And finally, from our police department with 40 years of service, Joseph Bellino. And Madam Mayor, members of council, and members of the public.
Wait, but there's one more. We have a member of the mayor and city council department. And so Elizabeth Tisdall, for 10 years of service. Congratulations.
We also do have, we would like to recognize all of those who could not make it tonight, but also have dedicated their lives to the city of Evanston. So for 25 years of service, we have Carmelo Penario, Dean Mosca, Jeffrey Block, Ronald Shulga, Peter Gobin, Robert Whitehead, John Schmidt, Kevin Ward, Curtis Sales, George Altanaga, Edwin Seaman, Gary Kramer, and I'm going with PA Chokshi, and Glenn Crabtree. Glenn had 35 years and PA had 30 years. The rest were all 25-year recipients. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Next is an award to Tiara Scott, who is the Evanston Township High School senior who won the national championship at the USAW Girls Folk Style National Championships in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And I would like to tell you a little bit about Tiara. She beat 3 opponents from Texas and 1 from California on her route to the title. Wait till you get this point. She recorded her 4 pins in an astounding 5 minutes and 58 seconds. The first girl I wrestled was from California, said Scott. She got pinned by a snap-down go-behind in under 30 seconds. In her next match, Scott pinned a wrestler from Texas in 8 seconds. I did a double leg and took her right to her back, recounted Scott. And the third match was the semifinals against a girl from Texas, and she was pinned in 1 minute 44 seconds. So, congratulations.
And Mayor, she's a Fifth Ward resident, too. Just want you to know. She lives on the block.
A month ago?
And my last announcement is that it's Public Works Week, May 20th to 27th. City Manager, do you have announcements? Isn't that awesome?
It is awesome.
And you've never read this before.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, I'd like to call up Godwin Chin. As many of you know, Godwin's last day was Friday with the City of Evanston. He has completed nearly 2 years as part of the International City County Management Association's Local Government Management Fellow Program, and we wanted to take this opportunity to present you with this service award and appreciation for your excellent service to the residents of the City of Evanston, July 2011 to May 2013. Signed, Mayor Elizabeth Tisdall and the 79th City Council. Congratulations.
Well, I'd just like to express my gratitude for everyone here at the city who has opened their arms to me. I came and I'm leaving a different person, and it's for the better. The city of Evanston has opened its doors for me. My first step into public service. So I just like to say thank you to everyone, Wally, the city council, all the staff, and especially my mentor, Joe. I couldn't have asked for a better mentor. So thank you.
Godwin, I'd like to say thank you to you for helping me to get the marijuana ordinance through, doing all the research on that. And I also would like to thank you for your help with the race dialogues. You worked very, very hard and earned the respect of everyone on that committee, and we were demanding and difficult, and you were fabulous. And the end result was fabulous. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alderman Grover.
And big help from Alderman Braithwaite and me for all your work on the Financial Empowerment Summit last year. Big success. Thank you.
Thank you.
City Manager, do you have anything else to report?
I do not.
Thank you. City Clerk, do you have any communications for us?
No communications.
All right. Next on the agenda is citizen comment. You each have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address. And the first 3 speakers are Junad Risky, Richard Weiland, and Betty Esther.
Junad Risky, 2784 Sharon. I will speak on the budget and the Water Enterprise Fund. Several council meetings ago, Mr. Bobkowitz suggested the Water Fund is making a profit from non-Evanston customers. I beg to differ. In 2011, it appears to me we were subsidizing the other customers probably in the range of at least $500,000. The recent 2012 numbers I see in the budget may actually show we're not subsidizing these customers, but we're clearly not making a profit. The operation is a money loser and not a pot of gold. Let me outline a few facts here. The water plant capital is valued, the capital of that plant is probably valued at about $150 million. If we took a 7% return on investment, which you believe your police and fire pension funds do, that would be $10 million. Since 80% of what comes out of that water plant is sold, that would be about $8 million to the non-Evanston customers take. So where is our return here, Mr. Bobkowitz? Are we getting a few $100,000, $1 million? The city has not produced any numbers, and I FOIA'd the city on this. The city has no numbers to tell me the profit of the operation. And I also believe of course, the contracts don't set what we do here. It's really what this operation should be doing, and the depreciation of these contracts is way too low. Let's talk about the pot of gold, though. And that is, Mr. Stoneback suggested when he made the presentation that he needs to make $2 per 1,000-gallon units. Let me to make a profit here. Let me suggest he's dreaming on this, and why. He forgets that over 80% of his current sales generate no profit. When you blend the current fact that you don't have this profit in any of your other sales and you add it to your new sales, you're going to be well over the 4 gallons you hope to make that Chicago wants to charge its customers, and that includes the $500 million you want, along with the other changes to the water plant, which probably go over $100 million, which weren't discussed, by the way. The mayor stated at the end of Mr. Stonebeck's presentation, go make us a lot of money. That's not a possibility, and it won't happen. I suspect we're going to end up with a bunch of bad contracts again. How about an independent outside audit of the water department? We don't need a staff email to everybody telling us what's going on, because that's not going to be the reality. The entire budget is like this, where we're transferring funds out of other funds. The city is transferring over $3 million from the water fund and calling it a return on investment. This is really, in my view, a fraudulent act, since we all know there's no profit here, and the $3 million is really just a transfer of the money to the city fund. And this is going on tonight, and this will be going on with all the other funds here. We're basically taxing people, taking money from other funds, and using it for other things. And that's unethical in my view. Council members want to believe staff that we have a lot of money here so you can have your projects and your things you want to do here. But the reality is this is not fiscally responsible and it's fiscally dishonest. I remember Wally reminding all of you during a budget presentation not to forget raising the water rates. We did not raise property taxes in this election year, but we did raise the water rates, and that really is dishonest because all it was to transfer funds. With all the misappropriation of funds and waste...
Mr. Riske,
Yes?
you need to wrap up.
All right, I'll wrap. Along with the fact you were never fixing the infrastructure here anywhere near the correct level, I see an enormous tax increase coming or potential bankruptcy. What time will only tell which one. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weiland?
I think he was here for the SCA.
Okay. Betty Esther?
Good evening. My name is Betty Esther. I stay at 2031 Church Street. I'm here tonight to speak on item SP1, SP4, and a non-agenda item. I forgot to sign on the pink sheet to come back. The first item, and it says new senior programs and service. This is a new initiative. That's good, but one thing, I looked at that, and I'm supposed to hear a presentation, and the first thing came to mind, what are these programs? What will these programs cost? Is it going to cost me? Two ways I have to pay for the programs when I get ready to use them. Is my property tax going to go up? Where is the fund coming to do these programs? So that was the first one. Fourth, SP4 is the capital budget improvement plan. And you're going to increase the 2013 budget by $6 million. How much is this going to increase the second installment of our taxes in 2013? That amount, because you're increasing it, but it was hard to tell where the revenue was coming to cover that expense. So will that revenue come from an added increase in property tax that will show up in the second installment of my 2013 tax bill? The third thing, I'm kind of concerned. I was at the Fifth Ward meeting this past Thursday when Chief Editon made a statement, and his statement was that his department is going to stop and frisk all men of color. But he said black men. I put in there all men of color. To me, that statement right then and there raised the issue of it being racial profiling, because you're going to have to stop them, and it's going to be on what I would see and the people that I have talked to sees as flimsily probable cause, because you got to have a reason for stopping them. So if someone is walking down the street and you are looking, trying to find a gun or something, and you stop them, you don't find them, and you tell them that's because they resemble somebody else, someplace else, and the person have not been that is a dangerous precedent to do. If you look at New York, they did the same thing, and they have had lawsuit. People stop. We do not need this. We just congratulated a young man talking about racial dialogue. Where is the dialogue in that? I know we have problems in this city with the shootings and everything and the killings. Yes, that is something that we need to deal with. But we do not deal with it, and I don't think we should.
Ms. Esther, you need to wrap up, please.
With it by violating somebody else's right for just walking. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Yeah. Madam Mayor, I have no idea what meeting she's talking about, but we need, I need, and I think the community needs a clarification of the accusation made. I hope in my heart of hearts that that statement was never made. So could we get a clarification?
Yes, you can. Alderman Holmes.
It was at the Fifth Ward meeting, Alderman Rainey, and that statement was not made. Alderman Wynn, Alderman Tindem, Mayor Tisdall was there as well. I believe the chief stated that did every African-American man need to be stopped? Of course not. That's what he said, I believe. And there was no such statement made that he was going to stop every African-American man. That was not made. That statement was not made.
I was there as well, and I would confirm everything Alderman Holmes just said.
Well, I mean, the outrage, the charge is outrageous, and I think Ms. Esther owes this community an apology, because those kinds of rumors, statements like that create an unrest in a community, and they're just so, I mean, just listening, I was praying that it was completely unfounded. And, I mean, the credibility issue for the speaker has been brought into question, and I am shocked that somebody who is a responsible member of our community would say something so outrageous. And maybe the chief would like to just confirm. I mean, because there are people who just heard that out in television land. And this will be played
You're right,
over
Alderman
and
Rainey.
over and over. I mean, I saw the council on TV at 1 o'clock Sunday morning.
Thank you for the invitation, Alderman, Mayor, Clerk, members of the dais. Several of you were there at the meeting. I think to set the comments in context, one, there was a video shown of the shooting that occurred at the Fleetwood Jourdain Playground, which set the stage for the comments that were made. We do not suspend the Constitution because we have a problem. We apply appropriate tactics to the situation at hand, and I believe my exact statement was that stop and frisk would increase, but not every African-American male between 15 and 50 needed to be patted down by the police department. We will use this technique judiciously and in the context that something needs to be done about the violence issue in that area, specifically related to a small group of individuals that are willing to shoot at each other in the middle of the day on an occupied playground. That was the sum and substance of my comments, and in that context.
Thank you, Chief.
I had complete confidence that it couldn't possibly have been said, but I think it can't be said too many times that the statement made is false and misleading and wrong.
Thank you for the opportunity, Alderman, and in your honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Tindem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you said, I was there as well, as Ms. Holmes said. There was no statement as said. It actually it happened just the way the police just described it, and there was no mentioning of frisking the entire African-American male population.
Thank you. The next speaker, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name, Hanatu Sai. Hanatu? Hanatu. Hanatu?
Yes.
I got it. Third time's the charm.
Okay. All right. Can I give this to you
Yes.
so that you can see what I'm...
Give it to the city clerk. I'll get it.
Forward, it can go down here, so we can have a reference of what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the damage that happened to my property on July 10th, 2012. But first I want to say that if you look at the first chart, there's a weather chart from this past April 18th, exactly when we had the big rain and the flooding. And I would just like to say that I did find out that your sewer systems work very well. We had no sewage that backed up into my house. You can look at the photos. We had a little rain from the window wells, but no sewage backing up into the house. However, if you look on the other side of that photograph with the red, you'll see another one. That is July 10th, 2012. No rain, no nothing. But that day, while the city crew was working on the sewer line in the front of my house, we got sewage backed up into our house to cover 80% of our basement. So now I've tried to find lawyers. Everyone says it's not worth them. It's not worth the case for them to take it. And so I'm just making you all aware of what took place. You can see the time for the day of the 18th. And then when you look at the other photos, those are from July 10th of the sewage that was in our floor. Now, we had to get that cleaned up. That cost $8,000 from Service Master. And so now our offer originally was $15,000. As you can see on the last page, it cost $18,000 just to put it back to where it was, not replacing any of the merchandise or anything that was down there. So we've had all our stuff from the basement in our dining room sitting there since July 10th. No Thanksgivings, no none of that. We're relegated to living in our rooms because that's the only room we have because the basement is tore up. Everything from 2 foot down, our drywall had to be replaced. They had to come in and clean it out. So now the original offer was $15,000. They wouldn't give us the estimate for their insurance person to come out to see what they were going to charge to fix it up, because you can look at some of the estimates that were on the other page that I emailed to one of the people here. And so he took that and said, well, actually, you owe $11,000 for the cleanup to Allstate. So right now, you're going to get $4,000 to replace all the goods and everything that was done to your basement, which is not livable right now. So because I can't get a lawyer because I am the working poor, and all the lawyers say it's not worth their time, I'm really just coming to inform you as to what happened. And I know we have a sewer problem. We're going to have to replace a lot of the sewers. So this is going to happen again. But it really bothers me that the working poor has to just take this and say, put your basement back to $4,000. Since you can't get a lawyer that want to take this because you can't get it on consignment, then you're just stuck with this. And that's all you're going to do. So basically, I have to go on YouTube to learn how to put up drywall, to put my tile back together in my house myself, which I don't know how to do. But thanks to YouTube, maybe I'll figure out how to do that. And I really think it's a shame, but I see it happening again because they're working on the sewers. He's not watching. The water's flowing. It's got to go somewhere once the sewer fills up because he's not paying attention. So it backs up into my house. And now we just have to suck it up.
Thank you. Your time is up. City Manager, do you have any comments to make that would help?
I believe you filed a claim with the city. Mr. Farrar, Corporation Counsel, Mr. Lyons, our Assistant City Manager, apparently are familiar with your claim. They're both here this evening if you'd like to talk further with them, but my understanding a claim has been filed and there has been a discussion with you to try to settle that claim.
I emailed them back, and that was the email and got no answer. That was some months ago.
And again,
and $4,000, what is that going to do?
And again, Madam Mayor, I
buy
know
toothpicks?
the appropriate place to
Okay,
to
I
discuss
would
this, but
suggest that you talk with Mr.
Farrar and Mr.
Farrar,
Lyons
who's
are here.
here.
They'd be happy to chat with you in the anteroom.
Okay, that's fine. But like I said, I was letting you all know, and the audience, because it's going to happen in Evanston again. You have a lot of sewers to be repaired, and so when you send a dumpster to throw your stuff out, it needs to be certified first, because now there's a debate about what is it really worth. I didn't understand why they sent it in the dumpster so quick and for free, but that's why they did it, so you can get your stuff out of your yard, and you have no way to verify just how much it costs.
Okay.
Thought that was a
Thank
real
you
kind
very
of
much.
move.
Thank you for coming and speaking. That concludes citizen comment. City Manager, we have special orders of business.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Several items this evening. First, Christina Farrar, our senior programs manager, is here. As I think you all know, Christina has been kind of on a sabbatical starting a couple of months ago through the summer to look at what we're doing with our senior programs. And she's here tonight to give you an update of the work that she's doing and to answer any questions that you may have.
Mayor Mayhem Tisdall, members of council, and Deputy Clerk Otweld and City Manager Bobkowitz. Like Wally had said, that I'm Senior Services and Levy Center Manager, and I've been given this assignment to research new initiatives for Evanston programs and services for seniors. I've also been working directly with Director Gaynor and meeting periodically with Wally regarding the project, and I'm really excited to give you the update as to where we're at right now. Okay. There we go. So I began this project back in March, and just for informational purposes, I've listed here most of the people that I have met with, and there's a few more, but I encourage other referrals if there's anybody on this list who you think I've missed, happy to meet with them. That anyone you think that would benefit from hearing more about the program too. So I've had the opportunity to meet with nearly every city department, and I've been building partnerships and collaborating with nonprofits and agencies in the community. I've been in contact with AARP and Northwestern University, as well as Portland State University, who worked with the city of Portland to make Portland the first age-friendly city back a few years ago. I also attended the American Society on Aging Conference in March, and I'm also going to be attending the International Making Cities Livable Conference in June. So as I've had the opportunity to be more out in the community and talking to residents and other professionals, I keep hearing, so what are you doing now that you're not at the Levy Center, and what exactly is the goal of this? So I've actually listed there that we're actually working to develop partnerships and collaborations for the senior population. And basically, I'm here to explain creating inclusive and accessible urban environments to benefit seniors. But it's not just seniors, it's residents of all ages. So I'm here just to share that with you. So everyone has heard many times, but you can't say it enough, that the baby boomer demographic is huge. It's the largest demographic, and they're going to basically determine our future. And they want to remain active and engaged in the community. They want to age in place, which is a term in my field, meaning they want to grow old and they want to live in the same place that they've been for a while. It's basically where they raise their families and they've built their memories and whatnot. But the question is, are they happy where they are at, or are they responding to a lack of choice in the community, or worse, that they're fearful of other options that are out there? So basically, how can we as a community support successful aging in place? So we need to be prepared to ask these essential questions, which I've listed here. Are we prepared to handle the needs of the aging? And what actually will these baby boomers and further require? And basically, is this a good place to grow old? And through all my research, I found many statistics about the community, but really this is what lends itself to this project. Forbes magazine listed Evanston as number 18 in America's top 25 towns to live well. Mather Lifeways, their survey in 2004 showed Evanston's a good place to grow old. And in 2007, the National Citizen Survey showed Evanston is a livable community. And that also happens to be the vision statement of our strategic plan, like we know. So I think we're well on our way to being age-friendly. So there's several entities across the globe that are assessing preparedness for the maturing population. The World Health Organization, AARP, the state of Illinois, area agencies on aging, and different cities and communities basically across the world. The question is, are we ready to provide programs, policies, and services which address the needs of seniors and potentially their caregivers as well? So what makes a community successful? And one important measure is how well it meets the needs of its citizens, obviously, in all stages of their lives. So is it safe, affordable? Is it walkable, healthy, inclusive? So basically, is it a good place to grow up and grow old? So in short, is it age-friendly? So the World Health Organization designed this project, and they identify indicators of an age-friendly city based on the views of older adults and caregivers and service providers. And they provided a universal standard for age-friendly cities. So the project entails assembling a team of residents who are now seniors, but as well as future seniors. They're going to act as an advisory council for the project, and we're going to begin a baseline assessment in collaboration with Northwestern University's Buehler Center on Aging. We may be hosting focus groups. We also will be doing some surveys, but basically getting out there and talking to the community, people of all ages, people of all income levels, caregivers, volunteers, people in the business world here. And Northwestern is currently evaluating the city of Chicago for their age-friendly city. And I met with the university researchers. I'll be meeting with them again tomorrow. They're working on that project, and they're excited about working on this project, and the lead person actually lives in Evanston, so she's really excited about this. So we'll evaluate Evanston's age-friendliness based on these 8 domains, and again, these are essential features that the World Health Organization has determined. It doesn't necessarily require the achievement of all of these indicators, but those are the ones that are essential that we look at. So Evanston is committed to helping seniors remain healthy and active and engaged for as long as possible. And when we join this World Health Organization network, we're basically going to be gaining access to global resources, and we'll have information on what other age-friendly communities are doing across the globe, and basically having the experience of everything that they've done in some of their programs as well. As communities become more age-friendly, people of all ages will find them more appealing. Not only older people, but mothers with strollers and ex-joggers with knee problems will really welcome the crosswalks with countdown clocks and mid-crossing safe havens and that type of thing. A senior said to me the other day, you shouldn't have to be a former Olympic sprinter to get across the street before the light changes. And she's right, of any age. Portland was America's first age-friendly city by the World Health Organization, and that was back in 2008. New York, Des Moines, Iowa, and Philadelphia have also joined the network, and like I said, Chicago is working on this right now. So each age-friendly community is unique, and the work of building one can take many different forms. So I've just listed a few here, examples of what other communities have done. Considering the aging population when planning and zoning improvements, ensuring that housing integrated in the community, also accommodating the changing needs and abilities as people grow older, and encouraging civic engagement, especially paid work for older people, but again, people of all ages. So based on the assessment findings that we'll be working with Northwestern on, we're going to have a citywide action plan that will be developed, and it'll also be linked to other city plans already in progress. So the promotable walking neighborhoods, the bicycle plan, the sustainable communities, even Evanston 150 could be part of all of this. They basically share a lot of elements, and they produce benefits that generally appeal to most, if not all, members of the community. One thing that distinguishes age-friendly development is that it actually has a mandate that it has to ensure the needs of older adults are specifically included and respected. And again, we're going to have seniors and different residents actively participate in this entire process. They're going to serve as a source of information for helping us set our priorities. So the question that I also keep hearing, and I also heard this evening, is basically who's going to pay for this, which is a great question. People at the grassroots level really need to jump in and help, where governments cannot. I think that we've all agreed on that. There are many social service agencies available in the community providing for the needs of seniors. Because of scattered and redefined families and trends in the population, needs may dictate more than informal supports. Maybe Neighborhood Watch could be more neighbors helping neighbors, which is similar to the North Shore Village model that's here in town right now. Many nonprofits do not have the marketing budgets to promote their services to seniors, and the question is, why do a lot of these places have wait lists? And I think that there's a lot of room there for us to be coordinating that together. So basically, we need to come up with some creative ways to break down these silos and bring everyone to the table and build on the assets that are already here in the community. And we also need to sustain this over time, and it's going to require someone on the ground who continuously connects the key players in the community. And I think it just makes sense that that person would be someone from the city. It's important when you're aging in place. It raises a whole lot of issues like transportation and housing and whatnot. So I think it really makes sense that the city's taking this on versus a social service agency. These are some examples of what is already going on in the community. I think one of them is the traffic lights have countdown signal timers that tell people how many seconds they have to cross. We've also improved safety by placing the signs at the crosswalks warning drivers that by state law you need to stop. We've also added the buckets of bright red flags for pedestrians to wave, and the audible crosswalk over on Northwestern's campus over on Chicago and Sheridan is also a big part of this, but you can go through that. The city also subsidizes the reduced taxi cab program, and of course we have a 26,000 square foot senior center that is bringing people in from all over. And then we've also listed the 311, the text alert, the printed information. So again, it's age friendly, but it's also for all ages. So I've been working with the seniors in this community for over 12 years now, and I know the needs of those that actually contact the city for services, and I work with some other senior service providers in the community, and I hear about what else that they're hearing and what they need. But I also think there's seniors with a variety of needs, and we're going to have to be more proactive about it. We're going to evaluate existing services and research unmet needs as well, and continue to basically plan for the future. We're going to have to discuss transportation and housing and quality of life, and we're trying to come up with a definition for quality of life, which I said it's basically why someone wants to live here after basic food and shelter and whatnot. And there's a lot of opportunities for seniors in this community to be socializing. The neighborhood groups, church groups, WISE, the bike club, the Foster Senior Club. We have different support groups, the Levy Center, the other recreation centers that we have. And then the more we thought about it, we have a boat launch, we have the lake in our backyards, we have this huge arts world here in Evanston. So there's definitely a lot out there, and it's a huge help, especially because when people are aging in place, it's going to lead to more isolation. And so I think the more that we're offering, even if it is internet and computer programs, it will help people who are isolated and not going to be leaving their house. So I've also listed some reasons out there as to why we should be age-friendly and why this has been coming up. Life expectancies are increasing and birth rates are decreasing, and I think we just need to be more proactive about this silver tsunami that is coming, and be more creative about how we're actually going to support them. Some have talked about economic development and what it will do as far as attracting tourists and retirees and everyone benefiting from having jobs and recreation and volunteer opportunities that are close to home. But again, a community that's truly livable for an 80-year-old is also livable for an 8-year-old and anybody in between. So we need partnerships to do all of that. That's what I've been working on now. We're going to work with other entities, and we will continue to do that. But I think we need to emphasize that we cannot do this to the community or for the community. We need to do this with our community, or it's not going to work, and I really think that we're going to fail. So we need to build this coalition of stakeholders and encourage and engage residents to be proactive in this project. And the more people that I've talked to, not only residents but other social service agencies, are excited about this, and they have asked questions and they want to know what else they can do. So, and I think it's a little overwhelming, really, when you think about what is coming with the silver tsunami. And I mean, a senior is anywhere from 65 to 105. So, and it varies as to, you know, isolation versus whether or not you're working. You could be raising your own grandkids. So, seniors in themselves are already a diverse group. I also think that we could look at the priorities, and we're setting expectations to age in place, so we're not actually telling them what we're going to be doing. We're actually going to be working with them. And we need to basically hear what they have to say so that I think what everyone says, a place where residents can work, live, and play. I think it just makes sense, regardless, again, of what age you are. So I would be happy to take any questions.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Ferraro. It is exciting, and it's all potential, I think. Any work that we do to improve services, opportunities, amenities for, you can't even call them seniors anymore, really.
I think that'd be part of this project.
The middle-aged. Seniors are always, you know, middle age is how old my parents are. So some additional resources for you is at our Economic Development Summit last year, the year before, we had a breakout session on the boomer generation and boomer amenities, and I think there's probably some good information we can pull from our economic development staff from that. And then Leadership Evanston, it's a program of the Evanston Community Foundation, has a what they used to call a senior leadership program. Now it's called Encore Leadership. But what you could probably use is the database of all of those engaged residents who participated in Encore Leadership over the years, who are really used to small group discussions and brainstorming and offering feedback. And so consider that another resource. And then I would add bike lanes as an age-friendly amenity that the city of Evanston already does. Look at the folks who are riding bikes. It's all ages.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Alderman Fisk, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much for your report. In my ward, I have everything ranging from Mather down to the Cook County Housing Authority buildings, so we have a high percentage of seniors in our ward, and it's sort of where the rubber hits the road with the issues that affect them on a daily basis of living and moving around in Evanston. I'd like to be part of what you do. I think it can be very helpful. Some of you I sent an email off today, forwarding an email that I had received. I mean, just everyday problems occurring with sidewalk cafes, bikes on the sidewalk, bikes off the sidewalk, problems with bike lanes. All of these things affect how safe seniors feel in the community and how they get around in the community. So that's all very important. I guess I'm a little bit confused about how much you're trying to do and who the stakeholders are. And frankly, I've never heard of the Bueller Center before. I mean, in the first ward, we talk about senior issues. We've talked about them for as long as I can remember being in Evanston. I've never heard of the Bueller Center. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And is there someone from that organization here tonight?
They're not. There's nobody here tonight. And actually, she had called earlier. She was going to come with. And she said she's happy to come to a future meeting. So Northwestern's, it's somewhat of their Institute on Aging, so they do a lot of research.
I've never heard of that. And can you tell me where they are? And
Actually,
what it is
right
they
now,
do?
they're with part of the School of Medicine. I think we talked about. They're at 750 Lakeshore Drive down in the Chicago in the city.
Okay. And what is it? Do they gather data? Are they a research organization?
All they do is research, and it's on anyone, and I believe it's 50 and older, actually. So they do lots of different evaluative studies. So they're excited about doing this because it's basically what they do all the time is talk to older people with surveys and interviews and
So they
whatnot.
send surveys out to people who are of a certain age and get the information back. And okay.
We're going to be talking more about that, how to
That's-
actually do all of that. Yeah.
That's fine. Please keep me informed, not only informed of this, but also please invite me to whatever meetings that you have. I'm a little concerned about who's stakeholders and who isn't. A little concerned about stakeholders maybe talking on a level that doesn't really translate down to the average senior who's living in Evanston. And I just want to make sure that we take a very practical approach so that we can tell people that their lives are going to be positively affected in certain ways. Aging in place is something that I've talked about for a long time. Works very well in some communities. It's certainly something I would like to see, happening in Evanston. But we have a lot of resources here, but a lot of concerns as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Ferraro, for your report. I do have a couple of questions regarding some things that you touched on. And my first question is, how many focus groups have you had?
We actually have not started that yet.
Okay.
So we're going to be working with Northwestern. We're going to start the assessment process, and all of that will be part of it. So when we're assessing, we'll be doing the evaluations, like I'm saying, the surveys, the focus groups, whatnot. And right now, I could just compare it to what they're doing with Chicago, and I think they're actually working with 60,000 people in Chicago, so of course ours is going to be much smaller. And we're looking at probably like 9,000 to 10,000 people, so it'll probably be 4 or 5 focus groups.
How many?
Again, 4 or 5,
4
and
or
of
5.
course that's all up to what we'll be talking about.
Got it. And so far, how long have you been working on this project?
Since March.
Since March. Okay. I would just share with you, I have probably, between myself and Alderman Holmes, a very strong, boisterous group of very sharp, independent seniors that I hear from on a regular basis. So I guess either my challenge or what I'll be looking for from your report, and this is just some of the feedback that I get from my seniors. They're very concerned about their taxes, and access to having up-to-date tax information is just something that a majority of the seniors deal with in my community. Very, very concerned about lack of activities. And if you have not met with the Foster Senior Group that meets at Family Focus, at Fleetwood Jourdain, I would encourage you to put them on the top of your list. You mentioned Good for All residents, and so one of the questions that I asked myself, is there a difference in attitude between different sides of town, particularly seniors on the west side versus seniors that are on the north side? I'm very curious about that.
My personal opinion is yes. I do think that there's going to be different.
So we're on the same page.
Absolutely, and that's why I think this really needs to be more inclusive.
Yeah.
We're talking about all ages. I'm probably thinking 40 and older, as well as income levels, education levels. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So I was excited when you touched on transportation. One of the other issues that I think we need to pay particular attention to is grandmothers who are raising kids. And then there are a large number of seniors that I hear from in my ward that are very concerned about the handyman program. And so I know that that's something that falls under, I don't know whose department or whatever, but it is a concern. So I ask that you pay particular attention to that as well. I'm also hoping, I guess we'll get an updated survey. And one of the things that I learned from just the mayor's pulling together all of the youth services, that it was very helpful for me to understand in terms of the youth services and breaking them down by various age groups. And so I'll be interested to see at some point when you pull all of the senior services together and to find out what's working really, really well for our seniors and where are the areas that we need to know. So those are my comments and feedback. But thank you very much for your report.
Thanks, especially when you mentioned the handyman program.
Yeah.
With this generation aging in place, that's going to be a major concern.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Holmes.
Well, I've already shared with you one of my concerns about the services provided by the North Shore Senior Center. So I'm really interested in your collaboration and partnership, how we began to pull that in. Not only do I have a lot of seniors in my ward who live in their own homes, but I also have 2 senior buildings, Jacob Blake and Prim Tower. So we have a lot of seniors to be concerned about. And of course, for those who are still living in their homes, the handyman program was very, very helpful, very useful for them. And so we have to get something to supplement that, to replace it, however, expand it, whatever we can do, to do that. So I, too, am very interested in being kept up to date in terms of what's going to happen with the project. But I really would like to see, as Alderman Brathwaite said, more focus groups, but that we really make sure we get a wide group of people from all segments of the community so that you can hear how everyone's feeling.
What is your concern with the North Shore Senior Center as far as what?
No, remember, I spoke with you about it in terms of
that their social services are branching out more.
Yeah, and that, and I think they're doing Niles, or I can't remember the suburbs, that they are really actually providing all of the services for the seniors. And I think we ought to look at something like that, because we have to, in terms of looking at dollars, in terms of what we can afford, what can happen, that we may need to do more partnerships in collaboration with other services that are already providing services for seniors. So that's what I'd be real interested in.
They're on Dodge in Maine. That's where their office is.
Yes, I know.
And right now they have about 2,700 open cases just in Evanston. So we do work with them a lot. So I'll keep you updated.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Alderman Tandem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you for this terrific report. I really appreciate that you're doing this and that the city has obviously let you do this for how long? A couple of years?
I've been working on it since March.
Wonderful. That's
Yeah.
terrific. I have a lot of people think of the 6th Ward with regard to Presbyterian homes or Three Crowns. We do have those wonderful places, but also there's a very large population of seniors. I know this. I went door to door quite a bit this last winter. And very modest homes, very limited income, but preferring to stay in their homes as well. I know the folks that are in the Pres homes or Three Crowns, or even Alden Estates, they're connected to what goes on in the city through their organization. But I often think that the others in the community in 6th Ward, since we're kind of way out in sort of west of the rest of Evanston, need to be better connected and find ways to reaching out to these people that are not so connected through some organization. So, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
And Madam Mayor, members of the council, before we let Christina leave, we had talked about this as a council goal. We had originally, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Alderman Rainey.
This is not quite an aside, but almost, just to remind Alderman Brathwaite and Holmes that the Neighbors at Work program is no longer operating. But we do have, on community development block grant money, we do have the handyman program, and we can fund it at a greater level if we get the request to do so. So I would really encourage you to remember that, because that really should be the main focus of that program, providing for seniors. So and that was the main focus of the Neighbors at Work program.
Absolutely.
So we can expand the handyman program, I think. Yes, and just so everybody knows, we still have no money.
Thank you.
Congress has still not allocated our grant.
City Manager.
Yes. again, as the council knows, you adopted this as one of your council goals, and when thinking about what best way to proceed, we had thought about finding experts from outside of our community to come in and start working on this, and it became very clear very quickly that we had an expert in our community in Christina. Christina has been managing our senior programs for the last 12 years from the Levy Center. I think it's been now 3 years. We actually had 2 separate senior programs. We had a senior program that was based at the Levy Center, and we had a senior program that was managed for the health department, primarily with activities at the Fleetwood Jourdain Center. So we were able to merge those programs together, and I think have, through Christina's leadership, through Audrey Thompson's leadership, been very successful in making that work. So I think what the biggest challenge for Christina has been that she is so busy doing, that she's so busy making sure the center's operating, making sure that events and classes are being held, that we really have not had anyone to look forward. And I think what you've heard this evening is just the initial pieces of, I think, a very important initiative for us to look forward. And we'll continue. We did not want to get too far ahead of ourselves, so there's really the community outreach portion of this has not begun. But clearly this is a citywide issue. This is not a north side issue, a west side issue, a south side issue. This is a citywide issue, and our work will reflect that moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Madam Mayor, SP2, Public Works Special Pickup Program. Jim Mayworm, our Assistant Director of Maintenance and Facilities and Maintenance. Which way? Okay, is here. As you know, about a year and a half ago, we made some changes to our special pickup program. We're here to report to you the good parts and the bad parts of that program, and to get some direction from the City Council about some changes we think will be necessary in order for this program to be effective. This is just as an aside, the first of probably 3 or 4 presentations that you'll be hearing from Mr. Mayworm and Ms. Robinson over the next several months. In addition to special pickups, we want to come and talk to you about snow emergencies and snow route parking bans, because we think that some of those processes need to be reevaluated. We're going to come talk to you about newspaper racks. We're going to come talk to you about banners. We're going to come talk to you about bicycle regulations. So over the next several months, you're going to hear a lot. Get used to seeing Mr. Mayworm, because you're going to see him a lot more over the next several months talking about these various initiatives that we want to get resolved here before the council's summer recess in August. So we'll start tonight, though, with special pickups. Mr. Mayworm, good evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. I appreciate it. Before I start, I would like to remind our residents that Monday is Memorial Day, and there'll be no solid waste collection on Monday, May 27th. Solid waste for that week will be 1 day behind. Recycling will initially start out a day behind and then get caught up, and we should be back on our normal schedule by Thursday and certainly by Friday. So just a quick reminder, that information is, of course, on the city's website and everything else. So thank you very much. Yes, special pickup program overview and how it relates to fly dumps. Historically, as you can see, the City of Evanston, we've always provided economical ways for people to get rid of unwanted items. Our bulk trash days that happen both in the spring and the fall, and our special pickup programs have been very successful and have been very favorably looked upon by the residents of the city. Our special pickup program was designed to assist people, keep their properties clean, and we start at a fairly modest $25 per 3 cubic yards of material. This program, we can get rid of couches, mattresses, furniture, all kinds of large items in a fairly timely way for people to dispose of it. And if people have patience, they can take advantage of our bulk pickup days, which again occurs spring and fall. After comparing with some of the communities around us and some of the costs that a private scavenger can charge, our program is really very affordable. It's $25 for the first 3 cubic yards, $10 for every additional 3 cubic yards, and occasionally there are additional cleanup fees that are assessed if the materials that are brought out are strewn around, or in the case of fly dumps are really just all over the place. Our average costs are $35, and I did some quick benchmarking, and a private scavenger service for us the same 6 cubic yards could charge us, our residents, anywhere between $175 and $200 per stop. Here are some examples of what we're looking at that we run across for both special pickups and fly dumps. Chair, $25. This particular one was called into us as a fly dump. We doubted its authenticity and were able to bill for $65. So there's another opportunity of some of the things that we see out there and some of the charges that we get from this. Another $120 cost for this one here. Cost per revenue. Our special pickup program averages 40 to 50 pickups per week, or between 2,000 and 2,600 pickups per year. Our average cost per week is $1,600, and our revenue collected versus our pickups is $1,600 to $2,000 per week. Special pickup revenue in 2010 was $83,399, which essentially put our program at a cost-neutral standpoint. We were essentially breaking even. In 2011, what we were able to recapture on special pickups dropped, and in 2012, it dropped again. And during the course of an audit of our program, we discovered that the one common denominator that connected all of this decline in revenue was the fact that we had added a category in our 311 resident systems that was called fly dumps, which essentially took away the responsibility and the connectability of a special pickup and just allowed people to report things anonymously. In 2010s, this is a breakdown by ward for our special pickup programs, somewhat equalized. And this is special pickups versus fly dumps. 2011, we had 1,600 special pickups, and we had 331 fly dumps. 2012, you can see we were only an additional 27 more special pickups, but we had increased significantly on the fly dump aspect of things. Unfortunately, led us to the conclusion that fly dumping, the ability to report a fly dump without the accountability to it is leading to a decrease in revenue. Here's 2012, fly dumps per ward. And here are some options that we wanted to take questions and discuss tonight. One of our options is to eliminate the 311 fly dump request and revert back to our old procedure, which is essentially to have everything be come into us as a special pickup, and then we would examine exactly what we're looking at, connect the debris with any kind of addresses we can find, and verify whether or not it could be a fly dump. Another opportunity for us, if we wanted to continue the current process, is to increase the cost of the fee for a special pickup, and that would give us the opportunity to then cover the costs of what fly dumping could be, or we could just generally across the board increase any kind of sanitation surcharge that we have. So at that point, if we have any questions or any discussion, I'd like to entertain it.
Alderman Rainey.
Well, I was thinking about this today, and I think this is, I'm thinking about this like I'm thinking about towing during snowstorms. I think fly dumping and special pickups ought to be privatized. I think that it is a perfect opportunity for small contractors in Evanston to get in on some of this. We know we have these trucks all over town. I almost got run over by one in my alley the other day, going up and down. Now, these are smaller people, but some of the special pickups are smaller. I mean, they're not all huge.
That's correct.
The one problem I couldn't resolve in my head is where the dumping would take place once the pickup. But I think our expense and time and effort is in the pickup of I mean, we have a place where we take stuff. I mean, that's all contracted on a regular basis. So is there any way we could think about privatizing special pickups? People would still have to pay for it the same way. You know, we'd put it on their water bill, they'd have to keep track of where they picked up.
Certainly, we can look at that. When we did a rough benchmark analysis, because we thought of privatization, the cost was fairly prohibitive.
Well, I saw that, but that's with the big guys, right?
That was with I'm not exactly sure what their size would be, but more of a specialty scavenger type of company. I think it was junk.
We don't need a specialty scavenger for a sofa or a mattress. I mean,
we can certainly look at
we just need
privatizing.
somebody with a safe vehicle who's willing to. I mean, I have no idea what they would charge, but I'm not talking about hiring, Veolia or whoever's out there these days to pick stuff up. Oops, here comes the bad news.
Sure.
I guess, Alderman Rainey, Suzette Robinson, Director of Public Works, that would require, part of the reason why we have the special pickup program and we got away from people calling in 48 hours, because we really cleaned up our alleys. If you go back 6 years ago,
Absolutely.
They were horrible.
Absolutely.
So that would require residents to make the call, and if they didn't, we could revert back to the alleys looking the way they were before.
Well, but that's how we're picking stuff up now. Residents are making the call.
No, we
searching
tag.
about
We still tag. Yes, we will tag, and we will pick. We change the ordinance that doesn't require 48 hours, and when the driver drives by and they see it, they tag it, and it goes on a schedule, and we pick it up.
Well, the ones I'm calling in haven't been tagged. I mean, so.
Yes.
We have privatized tire pickup. Most people don't even know that you can get the tires in the alley picked up, right?
Yes, and we pick those up too. We're picking those up. Yes, we do. We pick them up on Tuesdays.
Recycled by somebody.
That's
else.
correct.
I see. Okay, all right. I still think we ought to give some thought to this. There's got to be a way to think about it without saying, no, we can't do it. Because my alleys are beautiful. I love my alleys.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen?
Well, my question was similar to, I think, related to what you had just said, Suzette. I'd like to know, because I do, when I drive alleys, and I'll see furniture and other items out, and if I don't immediately stop and text it in, it might slip my mind, and then I'll drive it again, and then it's still there a week later. So I'd like to know, to what extent are our drivers really tagging things? Because I can think of one or two serial residents that I have who seem to be unloading one piece of furniture after another into their alley. And over and over again, I'll see a sofa, a big chair that will stay out there for a week or two, because I'll think, well, maybe they called in the special pickup, but they haven't. And I'm surprised sometimes when I see something sit for 3 weeks.
And I will say that our drivers, because we're in recycling now, when we were collecting garbage, the drivers were responsible. We actually have an inspector who is on maternity leave. So that would be why you don't see as many tags as now. The supervisors have to go out in there, and then the drivers sometime the special pickup driver himself may tag things, but it's not as prevalent as it was when we have a full-time person that's doing that.
So our garbage truck drivers are not tagging?
No, because they're collecting recycling,
Right.
so they're focused on another.
Right. Okay.
Can't they see a sofa when it's laying in the alley?
Yeah, but they're on they have a pace to get through. Right. So if they stop and put special tags, and they are tagging recycling too, because they're tagging the TVs. They have in this business, time is money. So, they have to get things done, and then they have to dump their trucks so that they don't run overtime, because we got to go all the way to Elk Grove Village to dump the recycling trucks. So.
No, I understand that then. So I'll just send more texts in.
Alderman Holmes.
Well, I think we need to think about going back to the old procedure. That's my thought. And in my ward, I get a lot of calls about fly dumping, and most of them are real. And I know how you can tell when they're not real. But the one that Director Robinson and I have been talking about, the place was, they had a fire in January. They have a dumpster in front, but yet and still stuff is being dumped in the back constantly. And I think it's been 3 times in the last 2 or 3 months. So that one I'm sure is real. But sometimes I know people will call and say, well, people are dumping stuff. And it's their own stuff, so we do know that. But I think if we go back to the old procedure, it would be better.
Thank you. Alderman Grover?
I think the flooding recently may have created some confusion about the source of the stuff in alleys, having pretty much unloaded my basement into the alley after the recent floods. And it stayed out there, Alderman Nguyen, for much longer than any of us wanted. We were grateful for the additional pickup, and then bulk trash pickup in my neighborhood, I think a week or 2 right after that. In talking to people in other municipalities, they're actually kind of surprised that, believe it or not, I have these conversations, they're surprised that we do 2 bulk trash pickups a year, in spring and the fall. They only do one in the spring as part of a community spring cleaning. And if we publicize these free bulk trash pickups more, maybe we would help reduce the number of fly dumps that we get if folks knew more about, all you got to do is wait for twice a year. Do we investigate the 311 anonymous calls of fly dumping?
We do, and a lot of times we're very accurate with figuring out what is and what is not a fly dump. We will get calls that tell us they're a fly dump, and you get out there and the furniture is very neatly stacked and it's a very large volume, and I'm sorry, I've never seen anybody fly dump something so neat and tidy.
And it's behind a house, or it's in a...
Behind a house, behind a garage. 9 times out of 10 we can find a piece of paper with an address on it, and we can connect it back and make a call and say, I'm sorry folks, nice try, but actually no.
So we could still, though, tag those houses, those residents, for the fly dump, for the special pickup, even though it's called in as a fly dump.
Correct.
Director Robinson.
I think before, when people were calling into the Public Works number, we got about, when we changed our policy to really start enforcing and investigating the fly dumps, we were down to about 5 a month. So 60 in an entire year. And so hence, when you look at the special pickup revenue, more often than not, and I would think the economy also played a role in the number of fly dumps going. People just didn't want to pay for a special pickup. So you have landlords, you have tenants that move out, you have tenants that have been evicted, and where they have called that a fly dump. The volume of things and that are being left. It's just become overwhelming. And even though investigating 60 fly dumps a year versus 400 fly dumps a year, that's also a lot of staff time. And then there's this electronic debate that goes on with the residents, reaffirming. And so, eliminating the category altogether and having everything come in from a special pickup, people start from a different perspective versus that now I'm not going to have to pay because I put it in as a fly dump. I'm not going to have to pay, and I'm not going to see. So it creates a lot of angst and anxiety with the clerk and through the water department. Once they get their water bill, and if there's a special pickup fee, it's
So having 311, being able to call 311 to report a fly dump anonymously has created a larger number of those reports.
Yes.
But we're still charging for special pickups for a great number of them anyway, right?
No.
we're
I mean,
not.
if you...
Not
Yes.
as many.
No, if you look at I mean, that revenue drop is directly related to the number of fly dumps because we're not charging, and a lot of times we don't have if we don't have the time to go out and do the investigation because we get behind, we're eating the cost.
So what you're really suggesting is just making the default setting back to special pickups rather than our default setting being fly dump. The presumption being it's a special pickup. The exception would be if it's really legitimate dump.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Right. So the police department no longer accept, because the police were also, the fly dump thing had gotten, it has spun way out of control.
All right,
so.
I'm for changing the default setting on this. Yeah.
Alderman Tandem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a pretty unique dumping area in the 6th Ward, which is county property. And I'm wondering if someone does call the city with, not knowing whether it's city, presuming it's city property, are they given a referral to call the forest district, or they are calling or if they left an anonymous tip, would we follow up and contact the county on that property?
Yes, we do, because we don't collect anything off of that.
Right.
That
No,
property.
we shouldn't.
So when we get the call, we're making the call to the county, and a lot of the residents already know. In your word, they know to
Sure.
contact the county themselves.
Yeah.
So,
do we spot things? I mean, if you're out checking for things, if you spotted something in the forest reserve, would you note it, or would you just?
well, most of the dumping that happens in a forest, a lot of it is actually next to the cans. I mean, they do it right in the right of way in the can or next to the can, because not many people are walking into the bushes with their fly dumps and dumping them off.
Well, actually, there is quite a bit.
Well,
I mean, it's it's very dense in there, so
yeah.
people get away with it.
Yeah, but we don't go on the property. All we see, whatever we can see from the roadway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Alderman Fisk.
Thanks. A two-part question. First of all, when the Northwestern kids move out, the university provides dumpsters, which are incredibly helpful. I mean, we have 8,000 kids moving around twice a year, coming and going. So that's real helpful. But I was hoping somebody could remind me, when we had the program for neighborhood dumpsters, I thought that was a shared expense between the city and the neighbors. Do you remember that, or was that all borne by the city?
Yes, the city was paying for that, and contractors. There were a lot of abuses. The dumpsters were unmonitored, and it got to the point where it was costing the city between $120,000 to $150,000 a year to manage that program. The dumpster program, we actually we do special pickups for Northwestern for move-in. Is it move-in?
Move in and move out.
Move out, we do special pickups, and move-ins, they do dumpsters, and we actually share the cost 50-50 with Northwestern.
They do dumpsters at move-out time, too, because I think twice a year there are dumpsters out there.
No, we do. We have a special pickup program. It's the move-out, right? The move-out, they have to call in. There's a map, and the residents, they actually call in, and Northwestern pays half the bill.
And approximately how much is that?
Do you remember how much it was? Yeah, somewhere between 20 and 30,000, and they pay half.
Okay. Well, I thought the dumpster program was a really good idea. It seemed to me that on the blocks that I was aware of in the first ward, people on the various blocks were pretty protective of their dumpster. And
but it's out there unmonitored.
No, I understand.
And then there was yard waste mixed in. I mean, it was yard waste mixed in with garbage. It was the contractors. I mean, you could just call in. We had a certain developer who was ordering, rehabbing houses and ordering dumpsters wherever they went, and the city was paying for that. So, because all you had to do was call in and say you wanted it for your block. So,
okay.
And it started off as it was approved as a $25,000 a year maximum, and it had ballooned to close to $150,000.
Alderman Rainey.
Well, I want to cast aspersions, but that program was a wonderful program if it was responsibly used. And I know in my neighborhood and in other neighborhoods, we always had somebody posted at the dumpster. You know, people took turns. Nobody could put anything in there that wasn't no food, big signs on, you know, poster board. But there were some aldermen who I must say I felt abused the program, and I was very angry when we had to end it because there were dumpsters all over some wards. Frequently during the month, several events during, and that's what killed it. And if we could give some thought to reinstituting it in a responsible way, I think that would be great. It was a very look forward to event when the dumpster was coming to your corner. And there was a dumpster for yard waste and a dumpster for, you know, mattresses and furniture.
Yeah, and that's why the free bulk trash was the exchange. We figured that we could control because the residents actually could just put their stuff on the curb twice a year and we would just come pick it up. So we didn't just eliminate the free opportunity. We opened up the opportunity to everybody and then tied it directly to home. So that was in exchange for that.
Community. I mean, there was more spirit involved, and people met people they hadn't met before. And I thought it was a great activity, but, you know, like anything else,
we'll look into it.
It was abused. I mean, I know that there were dumpsters in some neighborhoods where there was nothing in them.
Well, why couldn't we try that again? Instead of the bulk trash day, why couldn't we have a bulk trash weekend where there are dumpsters throughout the wards?
And Alderman, we'd be happy to look at that. I think that there has been, Alderman Braithwaite had a cleanup, a month, 6 weeks ago. We were unable to really provide the service that I think he and the community were expecting because of all that you're talking about. So I think if we can get some resolution to the issue at hand, we can also then come back with a plan either to do a weekend or one award a year or something like that. Let us chew on it a little bit. But I think clearly there's an interest. It's an opportunity to engage people, neighborhood groups, school groups, things like that to get involved. And if we can do it in a managed way so that's not a $150,000 expense to us annually, we'll come back with some ideas.
Certainly.
All right, Alderman Holmes.
I thought I spoke already, didn't I?
Wait. It's all right. You don't have to.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I'm okay.
So Madam Mayor, I think I'm hearing.
I know. I did it. No, you turned it off, and then I thought I had turned it off too.
Oh, you're messing me up here, Dolores.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I think I'm hearing from the council a desire to go back to the former process, where the default is a special pickup, and then we will investigate the fly dumps as they occur. We can certainly provide an update to you. Perhaps after 6 months, I think this is a good time of year to start a change like this. We'll make sure that the community is aware, and perhaps institute June 1 and give it a couple of weeks to get the word out. Then we'll also come back to you at a future meeting and talk about this idea of neighborhood cleanups. And because it was more, I'm thinking of Alderman Braithwaite's request. It was more than just a dumpster. It was, do we have some extra rakes? What's the ability of some trash bags, things like that. So I think we'd want to look at it. Perhaps there is a mobile cleanup trailer we have that has stocked with all of those things, so that it's not just the bin, but it's some other things as well. So we'll be happy to come back at a future meeting.
Thank you. We were very excited on my street, too, when the dumpster came.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. City Manager.
Next, Madam Mayor, first quarter financial report. Mr. Lyons is here to give you an update of where we stand a little more than 3 months into the fiscal year.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, Deputy Clerk Otwell, City Manager Bobkowitz. I'd first like to thank Jim Mayworm for taking away the title of person with the most and different titles. I think I've had the same title now for 2 years, so I really appreciate passing that on to Jim. So that's great for you, Jim. We have the first quarter financial review, and we have a longer discussion about budget amendments, so I'm going to go through the report fairly quickly. Overall, first quarter, no surprises, and any surprises are what I would call a continued pleasant surprise from the county, sending us property tax dollars on a timely basis. So that has been a real help to our fiscal situation. So general fund revenues not at 25% yet, but that's also, we do have more revenues in the summer than we do in the winter. So that's not surprising. I think what's important is when we look at our revenues at each quarter is that they are above our expenses. And as we go through this, that will bear out. So general fund expenses, $18.5 million or 21.9% of budget. So again, revenues a little bit above budget, and that's mainly due to property taxes, expenses well below budget. But as noted here, we have other things such as the summer plan for the police department, seasonal employees. But we did have 2 good months of winter, so a good representation of our snow and ice control issues. So we're still under budget with the major winter months behind us. So that leaves us with a $3.7 million difference between revenues and expenses. We don't start calling them surpluses until we get to the end of the year. So just this graphic gives you an idea of where we're at on taxes. As noted previously, property taxes in at 50.5%. We would like that number closer to 55%, but that's because the county is supposed to send us 55% of the prior year's levy, and our levy did not go up that much. But it is still a welcome sight to have it in as soon as it is. State income tax continues to be very strong for us. So we did raise the budget as a part of last year's budget, and we're meeting it. The other issue of note would be the license permits. We're running fairly well overall, building permits being over 30%, but the combination of license permits and fees at 26.1%. So this is just an itemization. Please stop me if you have any questions. We did raise the real estate transfer tax budget, so we are hopeful that come this summer we will have more turnover in property reflecting a stronger economy.
Alderman Rainey has a question.
Marty, you need to be very careful with that phrase. We did raise the real estate transfer tax budget. It sounds to some people like we raised the real estate transfer tax, which we did not.
We did not increase any tax rates in the 2030. Thank you for that correction, Alderman Rainey.
Because they'll be calling in the morning, Barrington Board of Realtors.
And we continue to monitor sales tax. Part of the reason that this will be lagging a little bit behind is we do use just a normal 1/12 proration, comparing it to last year, and we are looking for Trader Joe's to come in the latter half of 2013, which will increase revenues. And that's it for revenues. On the expense side, it's very easy to take a look. All departments are under budget year to date, even with some of the departments that have had a lot of work to get accomplished in the first part of the year, and I apologize. Public Works being the only one at 25.5%, but again, that does include a lot of the snow and ice removal expenses for the year. And these are things you already know. We did have Public Works for snow and ice, police with special details, and seasonal employee wages. Those are just starting to hit right now, so those will show up in the second and third quarters. So that's general fund in a nutshell. Very quickly, our enterprise funds are doing well. Again, water and sewer are always under budget during this time of year because volume is down. So what's critical here is that the expenses are also down. So expenses are down because our capital projects in those funds are just starting up. And as they start up, we will also have higher revenues with the higher volume. And the revenues are also down in water and sewer because those include smaller bond issues. So those are listed as revenue, bond proceeds, and we have not issued any debt yet. Solid Waste Fund, as you may know, the Solid Waste Fund overall is in a deficit, but we continue to operate each year since we've created it in a surplus situation. So we've continued to eat away at that deficit. So the Solid Waste Fund has been performing as expected this year. And I just went through those. So what to watch for? We changed this a little bit. We're still a little bit concerned with Springfield, with what they might do with the local government distributive fund to balance their budget, and whether or not pension legislation, the changes being considered for the state pension funds that could be moved on toward local pension plans.
It's not this year.
Yeah, it's not likely this year. And then building and other permit revenue. We are watching. We've had several major buildings, not just Northwestern. We've had other buildings that have come in. But speaking of Northwestern, one that we hadn't planned on or talked about was yet another infill project at the tech center for Northwestern. And that building itself was, according to CED staff, was close to $40 million, the addition that they put on. So a very large building addition on a current footprint. They're filling in the E shape.
What does that mean for us?
Well, that one's it has a little bit differences. It's not the same permit revenue. I understand it was between $400,000 and $500,000 in permits.
Thank you. Alderman Ray?
God bless them. Keep building. Marty, do we have the numbers on the Walgreen project on Chicago Avenue?
We do. I can get those for you. We'll send it. We'll send it out as an email.
Some of these big projects that we've got going that have come in for permits, if we could get the total revenue on those permits, and I'm sure they're not all in yet, but the ones that we know about, I just think it makes a statement regarding, the health of this community. And I mean, when you say $400,000 or $500,000 for a project, an infill project at NU, it sounds to me like it's not a new construction building, right? You're talking.
They're adding a new section onto a current building.
A section, right? I mean, that is real money. I mean, that's really.
And the permits themselves are very important. It also reflects the investment.
That's what
I always am worried about Northwestern Cutter or Northwestern anywhere else. I like to see investment in Evanston.
And it's investment in Evanston. It also might have to do with employment, adding employment, and just the health of the community is reflected by that.
On the expense side, one of the things that we haven't had to look in the last 2 years, I don't think we had any construction contracts over budget, where the bid came in and we finally broke our record this year. So we had a couple that, for a variety of reasons, came in over budget. Overall, we're still doing fine in the capital improvements fund and the water and sewer funds, but this is something that we'll start tracking as the economy heats up, then pricing gets competitive, and we'll continue to work on getting our bids out as quickly as possible each year to get those first bid prices, because those that come up later usually have the higher pricing. We've had under separate cover and separate reports, I think the council's fairly well aware of where we're at with a lot of our workers' compensation and other expenses. Still a very big issue for us, and we're monitoring it and doing everything we can with the law department. So short of it, the one final thing to watch
Excuse
also
me,
is,
Alderman Rainey has a question.
One of the things I was wondering, Marty, when I was reading the insurance fund, and are we in the insurance fund yet? Have you gotten
Yes.
to that? You did. Okay. In the insurance fund, did we set aside a reserve for the JDBY 222 Hartree case?
We did, and so that will be taken off when we do the annual financial report. So right now, the insurance fund shows a negative fund balance because we have so many claims payable reserves out there. So this will be one that comes off the books and raises up our negative a little bit in the insurance reserve. Any other questions?
Nope.
Madam Mayor, we'd like to move on to the next item then, which is a budget amendment, Resolution 33R13, authorizing 2013 budget and capital improvement program plan amendments. We have saved up a whole variety of changes, mostly in the capital improvement program, to discuss with you this evening. So Mr. Lyons will walk through that.
Alderman Rainey.
Do you need somebody to move this? I mean, the city manager really can't move a resolution, so would you
No,
like me
he
to move
cannot.
it? Pardon me?
No, he cannot. That would be nice.
Okay. Madam Mayor, I'd like to move approval of Resolution 33R13, authorizing the 2013 Budget and Capital Improvement Plan Amendment. And then I'd like to speak to it. Which would increase budgeted expenditures by $6,575,379 to a total amount of $253,935,256.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Rainey, did you want to speak to it?
Yes, I would. Marty, could you explain the debt service number on the city budget when it comes, as it relates to taxing the Evanston taxpayer? The total capital improvement budget is not related to debt service, only those portions that we don't use other funds for. For example, motor fuel tax funds pay for capital improvements, the water fund, et cetera, et cetera. So can you explain to us, of this increase, what will be applied to debt service on the next tax bill?
Yes, I can. And would you like me to take that in out of sequence?
Sure.
Okay.
I think we'll just go right to the table that will explain all of this.
It's just sort of, I think when we think of increasing any budget, many people think of adding to the tax bill. So,
let's make sure I have
know
it.
how much we're adding to the tax bill.
So I'm going past the table for the exact numbers of what we had before. So this is slide number 7 in your handout. The adopted budget had $5,872,000 in projects to be funded through debt that would have then gone onto the tax levy for the next 20 years. And we use a number a lot of times for that on a 20-year debt. About 7% of that is a number, as an approximation of what will be the increase in the annual tax levy. They used to use 7.5 and 8, but now with our debt service, our interest rate's at 3%. So it's a very low interest rate. What we're looking at is changing that to just under $8.4 million, $8,339,988 in the amended amount. So that is about a $2.5 million increase, which would equate to a little bit under $200,000 of an increase in an annual tax bill. And then if the council would like also on a Friday pack order and a subsequent distribution of information, we could do the analysis that we do at tax levy time on what does this mean to a house with $100,000 assessed value, 200, 300, if that would be helpful. So But what's important to note is bullet point number 3. We're going to pay off $8.2 million in unabated debt. So really what's our difference? What's going to happen to a tax bill is the difference between that $8,175,536 and whatever we issue new this year. So that's the potential increase on the tax bill. And a lot of that has to do with what interest rates we get, how much interest we were paying on old bonds. Lots of factors come into it, but
and Mr. Lyons, will that appear on the second tax bill this year?
No, it will not. In answer to the earlier question, none of this amendment will show up as property tax impacts for the taxes paid in 2013.
But it will come.
Alderman Rainey, does that address your question?
Yeah.
So maybe we could go back to, I think in the interest of time, go back to the main tables.
So, so what are we, let me just make sure right here. By fund, what are we amending? The Emergency Telephone Systems Board, $50,000. That's a carryover. It's coming from reserves. So no tax implication, no change in an ETSB tax rate. CDBG, those of you on that committee are aware of some funds that have been accruing. We haven't gotten to the projects, but we should re-budget them every year to reauthorize them and for transparency's sake, show them each year. So again, that is not new money, it's an aggregation of money. Washington National TIF, that was a slight decrease in the amount coming out of the TIF, but you still have a fairly large TIF budget. There's a lot of capital going on in the Washington National TIF this year. Only $3.5 million or so is going for debt service. So you can see we're very active in the Washington National TIF. So the large portion is the Capital Improvements Fund, and we have a table that shows each of the projects in the handout and in the report. Special Assessment Fund, we will be, that's a decrease in the budget, but we will be issuing a small amount of bonds. In the past 3 years, we've spent down the special assessment reserves because we felt we had excess reserves and didn't need to borrow to handle those projects. This year, we will borrow for the city's portion, which will be, I think the total budget is $264,000. So it's a small portion compared to the rest of the capital program. The parking fund is composed of two items. That is the PIVN loan and also the software loan for the New World system. So technically speaking, neither one of those are expenses. However, we show them as expenses for transparency purposes. The parking fund will exchange cash for 2 notes receivable. So the general fund will owe the parking fund $596,000, and then the external PIVN group will owe the $2.2 million. Both are paying 2% interest, and our current rate of return on money on a daily rate is about 1/10 that, at about 0.2%.
Alderman Rainey.
But we haven't yet resolved the PIVN loan.
Yes, that is a proposal. And to put a finer point on that, this would be the proper, I think the proper way to go about it would be to amend the budget to give you authority to move on the PIVN proposal should you choose. It's not an obligation to move on it. But then you have the budget in place should you choose to, and you don't need to do the amendment after the fact.
And you want that from us tonight?
Any amendment can be changed on the floor as you see fit. Again, it's not an obligation. It sets an upper limit. The water fund, that shows what happened in a recently approved, the Davis Street project, where bids came in higher than anticipated. So we're looking for the water fund to issue debt for that amount. It will be GO debt, but it will be abated by the water fund. And then the sewer change is in reflection of the grant from the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, again, for the Davis Street project. You all have these projects listed. I'd be happy to take any questions regarding the specific projects. They're on slides 4 and 5. By the way, it's, the noise center roof, just to remind, we are spending a state grant that we had held for 2 years, and the $434,000 is the additional amount needed for the noise center roof.
We voted on that at our
Yes.
last meeting.
Alderman Rainey.
I don't know if any other members of the council would like to discuss leaving the Piven 2 point whatever million in here. I'm very concerned about doing that. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to, I just don't think that the Piven issue has been resolved. And I think this sends a depressing message to those who strenuously object to the whole Piven deal. And so I have concerns about that. Even though I understand what we put in, we can take out.
And Alderman Rainey, members of the council, unless there's a great desire for debate, we're happy to take it out. It's difficult to get you in an evening like this to go through all of that, so that was our only motivation. But rather than have further discussion, we'll just remove it, and we'll have a number for you when you're ready for a motion that subtracts that dollar amount. I agree with you, Alderman Rainey. Again, our motivation this evening was to try to put as many eggs in the basket for you to consider as possible, but we'll just go ahead and take it out.
We can amend in as easy as we
Absolutely,
can amend.
but we'll, in absent, unless you would like to argue to keep it in, we'll go ahead and just remove it.
Alderman Grover, did you still want to speak?
Yeah, thank you. I had a question about the Davis Street project. Was that an increase in the size of the project or just to add in the MWRD grant for the sewer work?
Why don't we just go to the Davis Street table?
Slide 6, maybe?
So this is the detailed breakdown of Alderman Grover of the before and after for this presentation. I know that is Suzette still here? Thank you, Suzette, for being right behind me.
So that's an increase of a little more than $1 million, 1.1.
And just to what is, if you look, the $776,000 is also the grant revenue that we did not get. So the increase in our own funding has gone up more than the 1.1 million.
Okay, so we got to make up for the grant we didn't get. Plus
there is the water main. The water main was added. Much like when we redid Church Street, the project was approved and they didn't have any problems with the water main on Church. So we didn't replace it as a part of the resurfacing, even though it's old. It really but the project was already awarded. So it made sense. We actually caught this ahead of time and decided that, rather than hedge our bets, because we've had, that we would go ahead and replace the water main. It made sense to do it while the street was open. And we already had the sewer and part of the water main that had to be replaced on the east end. So it made sense to continue and make the changes.
Okay. And so that would be the utility improvements?
Yes.
Line of $1 million?
That's correct.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. When did we learn that we didn't get the grant for the Davis Street? When was that?
It was maybe about 3 months ago. It was the same time when we got the grant for the Arboretum Trail. That was the same, when that notification came out, that's when we knew we didn't get Davis Street, because it was the same ITEP funding. Both projects were submitted, and we got funding for one but not the other.
All right. My other question is, when we discussed the Davis Street plan about a month or so ago, we discussed the issue of removing the lights, the sidewalk lighting, and that was about $250,000. Is that reflected in this?
Well, we put the lights on hold, and that reduction isn't reflected. You asked me to bring you some samples, and so we are putting together different types of lighting at different price ranges to determine whether, and we plan to bring that back next month.
Okay.
So, but we would not, that part of the project is on hold.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Alderman Fisk, okay. Suzette, wasn't there street furniture as part of the Davis Street project? Is there anything like that you could cut from the project and decrease the cost?
Yes, there are a few benches, there are garbage containers and bike rack. That's the street furniture packet that goes along with that. And that is probably, that's the less expensive of the lights, but the garbage cans are expensive as well. But the answer is yes, there are things. So if you want, I can put that on hold as well and bring you back all the detail next month. So, because I can give you the quantities and the numbers and the location. But the bike rack that are been installed parallel to like the location they've been wildly popular in terms of having the bikes, being able to park your bikes in front of where you're going. So,
I agree with you. They're wildly popular. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will talk this time after turning my light off and on several times. I want to be really careful that we just not look at dollars, ways we can cut here without considering what the impact is. We just had a presentation on making our city more senior friendly, and when you start removing, street furniture, you start removing the sidewalk lights. The sidewalk lights are really, really helpful at night. If you look at them, you're walking in the downtown, it lights where you're going. And considering the number of problems that we've had with people tripping and falling on our sidewalks, they really, really are useful. And I'd invite any of you to go over by the library and the Women's Club and just take a look at how helpful those are. But I want to make sure that we're looking at this holistically and looking at it in terms of if we eliminate street furniture, we're eliminating somewhere for a senior to sit down. If we eliminate a bike rack, we're attracting more bikes to parking meters, trees, and other places where we're actually actively trying to discourage bikes. And we're in the first ward in the downtown, we've been ticketing bikes for that. So all of this has an impact beyond the dollar amount that should be part of the discussion that we have in a month or so when you come back. And please don't forget to come to the first ward meeting next month. We'll talk about it there.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey?
From a couple of bike people in my ward, concerns about the ability of people to pass on the sidewalks with all the new additional streetscape furniture, lights, etc. And I was wondering, we have a new accessibility committee. Have they reviewed access to especially the Davis Street project and Church Street?
They haven't been, Alderman Rainey, they haven't been seated yet. The committee's still in formation.
I think it might be a good idea. There was an argument that you cannot get a double stroller.
Yes, and that...
and that's not even handicap-ish.
But the issue is the sidewalk cafes. And I will tell you that what we did this year is we made all the sidewalk cafes resubmit an application to really truly reflect what's out there, and so the trees themselves, all the amenities that we added are in line with the trees. So if your stroller was going to hit it was going to hit a tree too. We stayed in that same line in terms of where we placed the street furniture. So we have actually not impacted. We've widened the sidewalk in lots of areas.
The argument is that we have. You're saying we haven't, but I'm just telling you, and I have no personal knowledge, but the argument is that we've impacted.
Right, and we've had quite a few violations over the last 2 years. The sidewalk, I call it the sidewalk cafe creep. We've had sidewalk cafes expand beyond the 6 feet, and we still have a couple that we recently had to fine because you're supposed to maintain at least 6 feet and at least 4 feet, and there's at least one case that they're not even maintaining the 4-foot clearance. So.
And also, Alderman Rainey, as we go through, we're going through the bids. We'll have a discussion at Parking and Transportation regarding the meter and pay and display boxes. So to the extent that areas of the community want to look at trying to reduce clutter, then we can look at alternatives for those meter posts if that's something that folks desire. I know that sacrifices convenience for right in front of the store, but we're looking at a lot of different solutions and had very good bids submitted.
When is the parking committee going to talk about pay and display boxes?
At the next meeting initially, and then we'll be having a public meetings, and then bring it to council in June or July.
So the boxes are actually being considered?
Yes. But it will obviously be, it's a X million dollar project in total. This will certainly be a council decision on whether, when and where to use the solar technology and what type.
I will never vote for the pay and display boxes ever, any place. Just put me down as a no.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Nguyen.
Alderman Rainey, I wanted to just speak to that point as chairman of the Parking and Transportation Committee. We recognize, and from our pilot programs, that pay and display boxes don't work everywhere. They do work in a few limited circumstances, and so obviously we are very concerned about making sure the system works well wherever we install it. And this is our opportunity to hear from people and to find out what works best. But we certainly have had pilot programs that have indicated that they're failures some places. So,
they're inconvenient and difficult.
I understand, and we recognize that. And we've had some, as I said, we've had pilot programs where people couldn't figure out how to do it, and we had to station someone there, to teach people. So that one failed.
That's not so much the problem, although that is also a
no, I know it's because you have to walk back.
Going and coming back, you have a baby, you have a bag, you have anything.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's raining out, it's the parking meters where you can slide in your credit card, those are the solution.
And we will have those too.
Mm-hmm. Set up.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Yeah, just really briefly. I'm on the parking committee, and we worked very hard to get pay and display in an area in my ward that's mostly residential on the edge of downtown, where there are a lot of student parkers, and every single meter had multiple bikes attached to the meters, turning sideways and falling on the sidewalk. No one could walk down the sidewalk at all. You could not transverse that sidewalk. And we asked the residents there if they would like the pay and display, and we did that as the pilot project. And they said yes. They understood exactly what it was. They said yes, it's worked in that location, but in the entire area downtown, I think we were more or less agreeing that it needed to be meters throughout the downtown.
Thank you. All right, folks, it's been moved and seconded. Does anyone want to amend the motion?
Staff would recommend the motion be amended to withdraw the $2.2 million. And Mr. Lyons, what does that bring the new dollar amount to?
The new dollar amount will be an amendment of $4,375,379 for a final budget of $2 million. Give me just 1 second here. I didn't get that part of it. $251,735,256, all funds.
No. An alderman has to move the amendment. Move the amendment.
I so move the amendment.
Okay.
That's what-
Second.
All right. Any discussion? City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tendem.
Aye.
Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey. 8-0.
8-0. The ordinance passes.
That was just the amendment.
Or the amendment. The amendment to the resolution passes. All right, back to the main, which has been moved and seconded. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tendem. Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey. 8-0.
8-0. The motion passes. All right, City Manager.
Yes, Madam Mayor, the next item regarding SP5, the commercial indoor recreation, staff would recommend that this item be continued to your next meeting. There's remains additional questions that several of you have, and we'd like to work with the Corporation Council to provide some clarity. So we're asking that this item be continued until your May 28th meeting.
Does anyone have any objections? All right, moving right along.
Great. Then, Madam Mayor, the last item is a review of the council goals and strategic plans for the 79th City Council. First of all, congratulations on all being reelected. You now have 4 years ahead of you, and I'd like to spend a few minutes this evening talking about some thoughts that I have about issues facing the city of Evanston, if I can get the clicker, and hopefully to talk with you about some next steps as to how best to discuss these issues moving forward. The city senior management, the department directors and the assistant directors spent 3 sessions over the last 4 or 5 months in anticipation of these discussions, looking ourselves at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for the city. This is not the community's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in our opinion, but these are the city government's. And we thought that this exercise might be helpful to engender some thoughts on your part. In the areas of strengths, everyone felt that really the number one strength of Evanston is the community, is the location where we are north of Chicago, along the lakefront, adjacent to transportation. Those are all unique things that really no other community in the area provides. Northwestern University, we had lively discussion about including this on the list, and it was not on really a final draft, and the staff really came back, and a number of folks, to say that there are so many things that we take advantage of now with the university being located here, and many things we still don't leverage. And while it's a great strength on many levels, it's also one of our remaining challenges. So, but it made the list as being one of the main strengths. Having a livable community. We've talked probably all night long this evening about issues regarding livable communities. Where do you put bikes? Where do you put cars? Where do you put people? Where do you cross streets? You know, we do these things pretty well, but as from the discussion this evening, there are still challenges ahead. While it's a strength, it's also a challenge as well. Diverse and engaged residents, I think you're all familiar with that. And then the quality and variety of housing. You can live in a $4 million house in Evanston. You can live in a single room at the Y. And you can have every other kind of housing in between. And that is really a strength of Evanston, and it allows for a diversity of residents and a diversity for this community.
City Manager, you didn't put District 65 and 202 on the list of strengths. Is that because you don't think they're part of city government?
And they didn't make the list.
They didn't make the list? All right.
So
they make my list.
And mine.
I wrote down quality of education as something I'd add to
And again, as I've mentioned, this was not meant to be an exhaustive list, but a list that your senior management thought would help engender some discussion. Weaknesses, taxes, and affordability. Certainly, as we compare ourselves to other communities around who may not have the amenities we have, taxes and affordability is perhaps a little bit of an easier issue, but it's an issue we face, and as we move forward as a community, we face our aging infrastructure of all shapes and sizes, our buildings, our parks, our roads, water treatment, sewers, water infrastructure. All of this is aging. All of this is costing money, as we've just talked this evening. Additional expenses in capital areas. Really, we're still at the must-haves. We really need to think of ways we can move to the like-to-haves. Lack of integration of community services. Still a lot of discussion among our senior staff that we work in silos, that the city is not communicating with nonprofits, is not communicating well with private schools, public schools, nonprofit organizations. And as we move forward, and again, as you heard in the senior presentation tonight, we can't be everything to everyone. And that lack of integration of services, I think, keeps us from doing all that we can do in this community. So certainly that's something we see as a weakness. Safety and crime concerns. It's a never-ending process for us, but if there's a perception of safety issues, real or imagined, it impacts really everything we do in a community, and we need to continue to be vigilant there. And the last one is we really struggled with the economic development piece, the retail piece. What is it that is a weakness for us? And really we settled on this whole concept of suitability of Evanston for national retailers. Part of that comes from Old Orchard. Part of that comes from when prospective retailers come here, they draw a radius of population, and in many parts of our community, part of that radius is Lake Michigan. So as we look at how we can continue to bring retail of all shapes and sizes, we're really challenged with national retailers. And we think certainly moving forward, and part of our economic development strategy, is that we need to focus on non-national retailers, that will continue to be a niche for Evanston, and just coming to the realization that there's not a lot we can really do with this suitability of Evanston for national retailers. So rather than spend a lot of energy and effort chasing after them, we really think that there are alternate approaches that make sense for our retail health.
Alderman Rainey.
Having said that, and I couldn't agree more, I think we have to do everything humanly possible to keep the ones we have. Everything.
And thank you, Alderman Rainey, for a wonderful segue to the next slide, which is opportunities. We've done a lot with economic development. You're all familiar with the additional staff and the talented staff we have added. We have people really focused on all parts of the community, and we need to continue working it. We really need to allow it to be vibrant. I agree with Alderman Rainey. The courting of our existing larger national retailers. Best Buy is a great example of the work we have done to really support their efforts. And in part, it's worked because the other local Best Buy in Skokie was the one that got closed. So, we want to make sure that those national retailers that are here, but we have to have that mix. We have to be supportive of the unique business districts that are located throughout Evanston, and there's still room to grow. We still have people who want to come to Evanston more every day, and I think it's really going to be a key to our future.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In conversations with a couple folks at the International Downtown Association Forum, the Urban Midwest Forum today, a couple of them said they were really impressed by our downtown, that it seemed to have that mix of both the national retailers and small businesses. And it makes an impression when you've got that kind of diversity of businesses in one area, in a business district or downtown.
And we're, many communities have a downtown, and that's their central business district. We have 7 or 8 different business districts located throughout Evanston, all vibrant, all have potential for growth, but it takes energy and time. The diversity of Howard Street to the diversity of Central Street to different districts even along Chicago Avenue to the complexities of the West Side. Most of our neighbors don't have anything close to that as far as dealing with that
Right.
that vitality. So
We are downtown for much of the North Shore, our North Shore neighbors. We are the downtown.
And for Rogers.
and so is Central Street, and Howard Street's becoming more and more of a destination in the west side. I mean, so we have multiple downtowns, really. If the business districts that we have that we call, neighborhood business districts would be downtowns and other suburbs around us. So lots of exciting things happening, and there's really no limit to how we can move forward with that. The second area was water sales. There is no single thing we can do to raise additional revenue for the general fund operations of the city of Evanston is to sell water to additional communities. And we've provided some regional recent updates on our regional efforts there. Engage community connections. Again, it goes back to these silos that we've still feel we haven't been good to really engage all of those connections that we have in the community. And it's not just the organizations, but it's individuals. We've started a robust, hopefully robust volunteer program. There's still room to grow there. The issues that Christina talked about this evening about neighborhood engagement and getting neighbors to help neighbors, all of these things are opportunities, and all these things we can be very good at. Partnerships, again, a little bit of a theme here, creating, certainly continuing with the new university, partnerships with organizations within the city of Chicago, but also regionally, and then finally senior services. And in the discussions, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but it's really this whole concept of quality of place, that this is a place for seniors, it's a place for young families, it's a place for young adults. What can we do on all of those levels? And it's a tall order. I think from an economic development perspective, the seniors are perhaps the greatest opportunity, but that does not mean that there aren't livability issues really throughout the whole community we need to be looking at. Threats, perception of safety and crime in the community. You're all familiar with that issue. Adopting successfully to changing demographics. The makeup of Evanston is changing, and how can we continue a long tradition of welcoming new people to this community and offer goods and services and activities and programs that appeal to all Evanston residents. Again, aging infrastructure and obsolete services. We've talked about the aging infrastructure. I'm also concerned that there are still things that we do as a city that may be obsolete, that maybe others can do, maybe that we shouldn't have that focus on. You've heard me talk about our recreation programs. I still think that there are some recreation programs that we have that maybe are better provided by others, and we've not explored greater opportunities for new and different thinking in that area, again, that keeps us the unique community that we are. Government regulation, debt and taxation, that could otherwise be titled Living in Illinois. So we struggle with that. I think we do a good job making us as business friendly as possible within the city of Evanston, but certainly we work in the context of a larger region and a state that makes it very difficult. And then available jobs matching available workers, and this the whole area of workforce development. What can we do to make sure that Evanston residents have jobs that are local, so that someone can live in Evanston and work, if not in Evanston, but nearby Evanston. Again, a long-standing community value, which I think has been threatened over the last many years. So the City Council's goals, I've provided those in the packet, again, for more of a thought piece than anything else. I've also provided for you the 2006 strategic plan. Some of you were on the council at the time when that strategic plan was done. Many communities feel that a up-to-date strategic plan is a real key focus to the whole government's operation. I would hope that the City Council would give some thought to where you see the role of a strategic plan, and if it makes sense to revise the current plan, come up with a new plan. But I think that feeds into these discussions of what the next 4 years look like, since it has been was supposed to be a 5-year plan from 2006, so we're past that window. Does it make sense to move forward there? Again, I think you're familiar with the council goals, and I'll also talk about some of them in detail in a moment. So in addition to the SWOT analysis, in addition to the strategic plan and your existing goals, what I tried to do was come up with a list of other issues that I think are important, and I would encourage you to think about as you think about what the priorities for the 79th City Council should be moving forward. I mentioned the citywide strategic plan. I think there can be tremendous value to that. The current strategic plan we have, I think, has been a challenging one to implement because it really has no objectives. And I think that regardless how we move forward, I would hope that the council would want to have a plan that would have measurable objectives attached to it as well. Capital improvement program planning. I think this council has done a tremendous job of helping your staff really focus on how to spend capital resources, but I also think there's still a lot that can still be done. The capital needs of the community are still very significant. I think there remains a sensitivity to how much debt we have. Mayor Tisdale and I had a conversation earlier today talking about the availability of money and the low interest rates now. How does that feed into our next 4 years for capital improvements, and what would those priorities be?
I just want to be clear. I don't think interest rates are going to stay low for the next 4 years, possibly for the next 2 years. So if we want to borrow, we should do it now.
Another issue is this concept of neighborhood planning, and I think it goes back to discussions we've had this evening about the roles of streets. I mean, what is the role of a pedestrian? What is the role of a car? What is the role of a bicycle? What is the role of the ability to have a seat? What's the role of having a sidewalk cafe? These are tensions that we're already seeing in Evanston. Many people love the opportunity that there's so much vibrancy, but unfortunately one person's vibrancy is another person's clutter and blocking access. And I don't know that we have clear ideas of that. Another concern that I have is the residential zoning of Evanston, that we have bed and breakfasts, we have assisted living facilities, we have businesses, home businesses, all cohabitating together, and we've seen over the last couple of years many residents coming and not always embracing those differences in residential zones. I think as we move forward, this concept of what should a neighborhood be, it's not we have neighborhoods of businesses and neighborhoods of houses, but we have neighborhoods that really encompass all of these things. And many communities around America are struggling with what that means. And I think we're at a point in Evanston where we are already struggling with what it means, and would hope that the council would want to have discussions to help sort through that for the future. In the areas of innovation, I think the organization has become much more innovative than it has been. But, in my personal opinion, if we are not the most innovative community under 100,000 in America, I think we're missing out. I would hope that the council agrees and would support additional initiatives to look at how we can be innovative. There are certainly some major initiatives that are before you right now this year that you will be dealing with, and again, I think you're familiar with all of them. The Robert Crown Center will be coming back to you probably here in the next 2 months with a recommendation of a team to move forward with final negotiations to have a partnership to construct a new center there. The main Chicago office building, again, with the TIF created there, that will be on your front burner here shortly. The Harley Clark Mansion, as you know, we continue to talk with Colonel Pritzker's representatives and hope to come back to the council with a discussion item on this probably also within the next 2 months. The Noyes Cultural Arts Center, the discussion regarding the Piven Theater Workshop and their desire to have a longer-term lease there. It really points to the role of that center, the role of the arts in Evanston. And then finally, the Recycling Center, an issue that was on the council's agenda 6-9 months ago, and I would hope that the council would revisit and provide some additional direction there as we move forward. Public safety, as we know, it's a constant concern of the council.
Excuse me, Alderman Braithwaite has a question.
Molly, can we go back to the last slide? And can I add the Dempster Plaza to that list?
Sure.
Thank you.
Public safety. We have very dedicated police officers and firefighters. I think the question is, what else do we need to do in order to help our community be safe? I think cameras are going to be an issue that we're going to need to talk about further. Other types of crime-fighting equipment, firefighting equipment are important. The outreach that we do in public safety, I think the meetings that Alderman Holmes has had just last week, I think raises the issue of what role do our police play in community outreach, and are we doing that at a level that's appropriate? And then finally, in the issue of staffing, do we need to add additional police officers in order to keep the community safe? And are we comfortable with our staffing for fire and life safety? Economic development, again, lots going on there. Lots has been done to lay a groundwork. I think the economic development plan that was last revised last fall is a good, real working document. We struggle in the area of workforce development. Having partners work more closely with us from Northwestern University to Oakton Community College to the Youth Job Center, it's a real, in my view, a real key to the future of Evanston, again, to have that balance of jobs where people live, and additional work needs to be spent there. Next, how we spend city TIF funds and staff resources. The Economic Development Committee will be having a discussion on that topic this Wednesday evening. My sense all of you want to see us move forward with economic development, but I don't sense that there's an agreement as to how we spend the money. That having boots on the ground and working with businesses, I think the council feels very comfortable with, but where we spend money, how we spend money, I'm still not quite sure what the council's vision for that is, and as we move forward, I think it's important to have a vision. And then lastly, the business districts. I think, have spent some good time focusing on the various business districts around Evanston, but the next few years, I think, are going to be really critical because we see growth, I think, everywhere. There's going to be the challenges of existing businesses versus new businesses now coming into Evanston. What's our role to be helpful in the growth of those business districts? Planning and zoning. My sense is we're still not very friendly when it comes to submitting a permit and having a path that is reliable and understandable, not only for applicants but for residents. And I think that there's work that can be done there. Steve Griffin, I think, was laying the initial groundwork for that, but with his departure, that process is not moving forward. We do have a group of graduate students contracted for the fall semester from the University of Illinois Chicago that will be doing a study of our permit review process, so hopefully that'll provide some additional information for us. I think issues of design review remain unresolved, and we've already talked about the nature of residential neighborhoods. And I think the whole issue of affordable housing, again, SP2 has been very helpful, but what are the longer-term plans for the city in the area of affordable housing? Sustainability. I think Catherine Hurley in our Sustainable Programs Office, again, we are among the best at the breadth of programs that we do of any community our size in America, certainly among any communities anywhere in America. But sustainability is changing, and I think it's important for us to grapple with the differences between environmental sustainability and that larger livability focus of balancing transportation and economic development and seniors and healthy living. Many communities that we like to compare ourselves to are really grappling with how that all fits together above and beyond environmental sustainability. And I hope that the council will want to talk in a thoughtful way, because I think we need to put more resources toward that. I don't know if that's necessarily resources with seniors or resources with health or resources with economic development, but I think we have to spend more time making sure that all the dots are connected in these areas, and so that we're not just dealing, in silos, but we're dealing in ways that make sense for the larger community.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you. And to make sure that the environmental sustainability is incorporated into public works as well, and make sure that our sustainability coordinator has an eye to everything that we're doing with major capital improvements, street resurfacing, so that we can incorporate green elements where possible.
And Alderman,
where
I think we're doing that well, but I think people are now, there's a backlash that says, why are we spending so much for a parking lot? And shouldn't we spend that money someplace else? And I think we have to recalibrate and say, if this is a value, and this was a big point of the last strategic plan in 2006, where the community said, we aren't doing enough of this, we want to do more. We're doing it as much as any community, I think, trying to balance that from an infrastructure perspective. But then it goes back to that larger focus of transportation. How are we balancing bikes versus cars versus pedestrians, all in small places, and doing it in a green way, and making sure that those improvements are environmentally sustainable. I don't think we're there. Most communities in America aren't there, so we're certainly not really behind. But I think there's an expectation in Evanston that we're, if not ahead of the curve, we're at least on the curve. And I sense we're starting to get a little behind. And I think that we need to, would encourage the council to think about this as a policy issue. So we
It
can,
gets to neighborhood planning, which was,
I really think that it does.
It gets to placemaking, it gets to walkability, and even as to neighborhood planning, that doesn't respect borders, whether ward borders or city borders. Thinking about these things differently, it's going to be required.
Alderman Rainey.
Well, in keeping with the neighborhood planning issue, it also goes to zoning. And the whole issue that we have that we only fight about when it comes up in a crisis is the amount of parking required for new construction, et cetera. And, I think we really, at some point, ought to talk about that.
All right, City Manager.
Social needs. We've done a lot in the last 2 years to really take our youth and young adult program and turn it upside down and shake it and really reimagine it. And those needs are growing. Our needs of dealing with at-risk individuals and families, be they seniors, be they folks with any kind of disability of any sort, are on our doorstep. And how do we balance that? And what kind of resources do we put there? Again, on the partnership side, how can we better deal with partnerships? Christina Ferraro is a perfect example of how we don't deal with partnerships. She is so busy, or has been so busy, keeping that center open, making sure that it's clean, making sure that the classes there are on time, that she's had no time to think about the larger pictures, no time to work with partnerships because we're having to keep the doors open. And we've had that same challenge, I think, with the youth and young adult program. Up until the recent past, we've had that same problem with the arts.
Alderman Holmes has a question.
I have a question, I have a comment. And we did discuss this, or at least I mentioned it at our meeting last Thursday night. Accountability back to the agencies and that we fund to do some of the services for at-risk families and individuals. And I think the accountability issue for me is that I'm not sure how much, if we know if they're doing all the things that they say they're doing and how we're going to do that. So I think that's one of the things that we're definitely going to have to look at this year. Because if we are funding agencies to provide some of these services, we need to make sure that those things are being done.
I second that, definitely.
And then the issue of Northwestern. I think the comments this evening that there is a center on aging at Northwestern that many of you were unaware of, and that they've not have been a player. Now, admittedly, they're attached to the medical school in Chicago, but if we can continue to mine ways for those things that happen at the university to be helpful with the needs that we have in this community, I think that's can only be a positive. Budget and finance, pension debt, capital improvement debt, both are issues that you're very familiar with, and I know that we will continue to keep talking about. The issue of shared services, we have dabbled a little bit in a consortium that the Village of Glenview has. We are working now with the villages of Skokie, Wilmette, and Lincolnwood to create a new consortium with those communities, and we're going to have an initial meeting with staff from the 4 communities here at the end of the month to talk about ways that we can identify that the 4 communities could work more closely together on a whole variety of things. I think it's a matter of control, it's a matter of quality of services, but there are many things I think where, especially between Skokie, Lincolnwood, Wilmette, and Evanston, that we can find some common ground. I know the village of Skokie is very interested in a variety of areas, so we're working down that path, and I think the more money we can save in providing some of these more standard services in a shared model allows us to fund some of the other things that we're talking about here this evening. Community services, probably one of the things that people love about Evanston the most is the whole variety of community services. And I think that we're really in crisis, that we really have an opportunity over the next few years to chart a course that will be the next 20 years of Evanston, and it's our recreation programs, it's our use of the lakefront, it's senior programs, it's the visual and performing arts, it's our libraries and how we deal with members of the Latino community. These are all challenges that if we do right, I think will set Evanston on a course for being really a community that's unparalleled, certainly in the Chicago area, and I think will keep us in the same breath of communities around the country that are of the top communities that are diverse, that have a whole variety of good services and quality of life, if we do these things correctly. And in my opinion, many of those things we don't do correctly now, and I hope that the council will want to talk about these issues as we move forward. Infrastructure, lots of challenges, and again, I think this is another issue that this next 4 years is an opportunity to take stock in our existing buildings, including this building. Do we need additional community facilities to meet the needs of our residents? Are we spending enough money on street resurfacing? Are we spending enough money on maintaining the parks that we have, and do we need more? We've talked about trees, and the changes that I've made this year I think will help us have a finer point on focusing on tree issues and the urban forest in Evanston, and then water and sewer infrastructure. While it gets pillared here at the public speaker podium from time to time, I think this council has been very thoughtful about investing in water and sewer infrastructure, but the problem is we have to continue to do it in order to stay ahead of the curve. So, Madam Mayor, members of the council, the purpose this evening was not to really do anything but to get you thinking. It's a unique opportunity. The 10 of you have had an opportunity to work together for the last 4 years. You're going to have an opportunity to work together for the next 4 years. Certainly in the next 2 years, you can do anything. That this council can set whatever goals and objectives, priorities you want, and you can see happen, and that investment and that vision will serve this community for a very long time. But I think that window is probably a 2 or 3 year window out of the next 4 years. And your staff is anxious and ready, and I think feels that this is a great opportunity for Evanston. But there's a lot of things out there, and not all of them can be a number one priority. And we're really looking to you to help us understand what you believe are the top priorities so that we can move Evanston forward over those next couple of years. So my suggestion would be that the council consider a special meeting on either Saturday, June 15th or Saturday, June 29th to have a more specific discussion. I hope it's not all that late, that perhaps you might want to talk a little bit this evening, but to continue that into June. As you know, I've identified a facilitator named Jean Bonander, who I've worked with in California. She has come out once and I think has either talked with or met with all of you, and would propose that she would come and lead these discussions to help put together a larger plan as we move forward. So thank you for listening to me this evening. Again, congratulations on all of your reelection for 4 additional years, and I guess I'm here tonight really to challenge you to make the most of those 4 years as you can for the residents of Evanston.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you. I'm with you, Mr. Bobkowitz. My questions, though, are of a really kind of petty nature. One is those dates I can't make.
Okay.
The June 15th, here's my big announcement, is we're doing a recreation huddle at Evanston Township High School in the morning, and I'm hoping some or all of you can join us for that. And, in the
What is a recreation huddle?
Oh, it's going to be like a recreation summit, except you got to use recreation, sports, activity words instead. So in collaboration with a whole bunch of recreation groups in Evanston, Evanston Township High School is hosting this event. It'll be just a morning session, the first, I hope, of many, talking about innovation in recreational programming in Evanston, what's everybody doing and what are we not doing, what could we do that we haven't thought of yet, and also connecting people who are providing these programs and services in a more meaningful way, getting outside those silos, as we've been talking about. And my other question, let me see if I can find it, is is I'm game to undertake a strategic planning process because I know they are of value. My question is, what are the costs? What would be the cost of doing another strategic planning process for Evanston? I was part of only the community forum portion of it back in 2006. I think I sat in on some of the sessions, but I don't recall anything about what that process involved.
And the costs could be from having city staff do it all and just have material and supply costs, butcher paper, coffee, things like that, to probably in excess of $50,000. I think one model that the council may wish to pursue is looking at the existing plan and seeing if perhaps a addendum to it or a modification of the existing plan makes sense. I think we have built quite a bit of capacity among your city staff, so we have the capacity to do quite a bit. And I think depending on how far you go with the electronic tools that we have, I think the ability through the budget meetings, I think we've gotten pretty good at knowing how to have meetings and getting people out. And we have 19,000 residents' addresses, email addresses. That plus print media, we can get it out. So I think it's really up to the council to do that. I think we know probably as much as most consultants doing this, quite honestly.
I think you're right.
So, but I think if the council is serious and wanting to pursue it, then we would come back and have a more specific proposal.
Thank you.
If it helps, Alderman Grover, I think that if you look at the goals in the strategic plan, they're pretty much what we'd all agree on. But if you look at the objectives, some of them we've actually accomplished, some of them we haven't, and some of them are pretty murky as to knowing that you've accomplished it or not, because there isn't any measurable objective.
So there might be a benefit at being able to cross things off our list if we revisit
It's always
the
fun
strategic
to cross
plan.
things off a list.
Yeah.
Alderman Fisk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Alderman Grover, you raise a good point with your recreation huddle. I think part of our problem up here is when we have discussions on specific issues like recreation, we don't always hear from the people that we need to hear from, and people who have spent a lot of time talking about this that some of us may not know about. And I really, really want to involve the community in part of the discussion. I agree with some of the points the city manager raised, and I disagree heartily with some other points that were raised, but that's all a good thing. That's all part of the discussion. It means that everyone who's in a slightly different position is thinking about things in a slightly different way, but putting them together in a cohesive, organized way is important as we move forward, because it makes our discussions a little bit easier when we have a plan. I think a lot of this is tied to finding a new community development director for our department. I really hope that we're going to attract someone who is high quality, who understands our community well. And because what we're talking about here are major changes, major changes in the way that we're approaching our community, the way that we're envisioning our community, the way that we're interacting with our community, and I'm not sure the public is there yet. I expect you to be there, City Manager, because that's your job, to be thinking ahead of the game. But this is, it's important not to jump too fast without the support of the community, or at least the involvement of the community, and I want very much to do that. I mean, Anne has her message board. Everything in the world is discussed on Anne's message board. Anne has a very good sense of what's going on in her community. The rest of us may not have that exactly, but we all bring a different perspective to this, which again I think is important, and which will be fleshed out in the meeting that you're planning. So I'm looking forward to that, but I just don't want to leave the community behind. I want to say one tiny little thing, and that is I was listening to WFMT today, and they were talking about Oak Park. And it was an ad for Oak Park, and they were talking about the visitor center in Oak Park and how come to downtown Oak Park, come to our visitor center and our gift shop, and you'll find all sorts of things to do in Oak Park and ways that we value our community. And I thought, wow, kind of interesting, because not that they have a gift shop and a visitor center, but that they've thought about their community in a way of how they're going to be presenting their community to visitors that come or new residents that come, folks that from out of town, visitors to the university. They've thought about this in a way that's kind of organized, and we haven't. And the discussion we were having a few weeks ago about what we could do for Evanston 150, and should we have buttons or could we get hats, and everyone was kind of excited about that. But I think it reflects an organized kind of concept of come to Evanston. I mean, come to Evanston for its architecture. Come to Evanston for its lakefront. Come to Evanston for Northwestern University. Come to Evanston for its unique shops. Come to Evanston for its variety of shopping districts. Come to Evanston for whatever reasons we can think of. And I think it's a very cool thing to do. I personally get a little tired of Frank Lloyd Wright. We've got a lot more interesting architects in Evanston than Frank Lloyd Wright. I mean, just to name one that I'm particularly familiar with. But we have a lot to offer. But the way that was presented to me just made me think it's something that we're not doing. And I think all of those things that we talk through help us to become a little bit more mentally organized, a little bit more mentally cohesive, so that we can go forward when some of these issues come up. It'll make it easier for us to, deal with things like vacation rentals or Bs&Bs or zoning or planning or business districts. And I feel very positive about that. So thanks.
Thank you. All right, we're left with Alderman Grover not being able to make those dates. Alderman Wilson cannot.
So Madam Mayor, members of the council, I think is a weekday evening more preferable then? My concern is that it'll be September before we get everyone together.
Well, it would be my suggestion that we have Kate or Dar is a genius at this, put out a bunch of dates and see if we can all agree on one.
Can we do it during the day so it's not in the evening? It's just so hard.
It is at your pleasure.
Why don't you have Kate do that? I think that's good.
But it's just, so you're looking at weekdays?
Yeah.
Some people work.
And that's why my question.
Well, I work too, so if we could just find
Well, let's try a plethora of options, both weekends and weekdays, and see who can do what. If we strike pay dirt, we'll find something we can all do.
So I would propose a 3 or 4 hour block of time. Right,
With your list, 4 hours.
And again, Madam Mayor, members of the council, I wouldn't expect this as a one-time thing. It's just, you have to start somewhere.
Okay.
And you're agreeable to having a facilitator?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we will put out,
Who said that?
we will put out 4 hour blocks, and we'll see. And you're committed to try to do this in the month of June?
Well, we'll try June, and July is an option if June is coming upon us very quickly.
Yes. Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time this evening.
All right. All right. That concludes the special orders of business. Next, we have call of the wards. Oh, and I should announce, I'm sorry, Alderman Burris is missing this meeting because she's on her honeymoon. So we start with Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just really quickly, the new developer for Kendall College, is going to preservation tomorrow evening. It's North Shore Builders. We're all very excited about it, and they're going to introduce themselves to preservation tomorrow night. They've already met with the neighbors. We had a very productive meeting, so hopefully this will be this will mean that this project will move forward. But I invite all of the neighbors and yourselves, if you want to meet these builders, to come to the preservation tomorrow night. And one small thing is that the head of the company said that he's inspected the site very carefully. It doesn't look like any trees will be destroyed in the development. So
congratulations.
That's a good thing.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, thank you to all the Second Ward residents that came out to our ward meeting last Thursday, and as well as the Public Works staff, Mr. Homan Yoon and Rajiv did a wonderful job just talking about streets, alleys, infrastructure, alley lighting, all the important issues. And I regret the fact, Alderman Holmes and Madam Mayor, that it conflicted with a Fifth Ward meeting. And I'm glad to know, I think it was Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Tendam, and the mayor, of course, were there. So definitely important issues that we have to deal with, particularly with the summer coming up. So I look forward to more conversations about those issues. And I'm glad to see that our city manager put them, incorporated them in his report. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen?
No report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson?
We will be having a fourth ward meeting on the 22nd at 7 o'clock at the YMCA.
Thank you. Alderman Holmes?
Madam Mayor, just to say thank you to all the people who came out last Thursday night to our ward meeting, and to thank the residents for their support in terms of the measures that we need to move to make sure that our community is safe. And that means more cameras, that means zero tolerance, that means a lot of different things that maybe we've not been accustomed to, but we want to live in everyone has a right to have a safe, secure community, and that's what we're moving forward to.
Thank you. And I did want to say that if anyone on the council has not seen the video that was shot from the Family Focus camera, you probably want to see it. Alderman Tendam?
No report tonight, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. How would we find the video? We have a link or okay. Ward report. First, thanks again to the neighbors of Torgerson Park who are using their labor, their money to buy plant materials to make these really lovely gardens at the park in honor of deceased resident Leonard Zach. The city is providing the rototilling to get the ground going for this lovely garden. Thursday night was a busy night last week. Now I remember why I missed your ward meeting, Alderman Holmes, because I had a meeting about improvements to Prairie Avenue, the sewer lining projects, and improvements, a coordinated project between District 65 and street resurfacing Public Works, so that Prairie Avenue and the Kingsley Haven campus, by the time school starts in this September, will have new sidewalks. Haven School will be expanded. Prairie Avenue will be resurfaced. We are creating new cutouts and drop-off areas for students. Traffic will be much improved, I hope. And we got some great ideas from residents about how to address some of those traffic issues. So thank you to Sat Nagar and Dave Stoneback for their help at that meeting. Sat, who said that Rajiv was covering another meeting, I think. Yeah, right. And then the recreation huddle on Saturday, June 15th. It'll be in the morning at Evanston Township High School. If you have names, contact information of any recreation group in Evanston, from line dancers to fencing programs to anything, send those contacts and emails to me so that we can be sure to get invitations out to every group that we can reach in Evanston. And again, this will be, I think, just the first of some community meetings about recreation programming in Evanston. Thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's an announcement on the back of your yellow sheet that CD will be meeting tomorrow night. Community Development Block Grant will not meet tomorrow night because we have no money to talk about. So,
I am sorry to hear it.
Yeah. Want to thank Southeast Evanston Association for our new tree for Dobson Brummel Park. There was some confusion as to where this park was, but we've got that straightened out now. And the park is west of Asbury between Dobson and Brummel. This weekend, I got a notice from a man named Dan Coyne, who was just elected to the Ridgeville Park Board, telling me that a friend of his father was missing. An 80-year-old man who was visiting here from Mexico who had Alzheimer's disease as well as being a diabetic. The neighbors organized the most amazing search party and effort to find this man who they felt might have passed out because he didn't have his diabetic medication. I contacted the Evanston Police Department and both Commanders Wozni and Parrott without any pleas any encouragement whatsoever, created a whole newsletter, notified Chicago with digital photos, etc. And as a matter of fact, because Chicago took it so seriously, he disappeared like at 6 o'clock in the morning. So just a few hours later, Chicago took it very seriously, and everybody looked for him, and he was found. He was found all the way to Kedzie, which is just west of the Jewel on Howard Street. He had wandered out there. He was in his pajamas. So I just want to, I told the city manager today what a great job our police department did. I mean, the neighbors did a fabulous job. But, you know, you always hear those rumors that, well, how long has he been missing? Well, we didn't have 24 hours, you know, that story. That didn't happen this time. It was as though it was their own grandfather. And everything worked out just fine. And I really, really appreciate it. So thanks to everybody who worked on that.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
Let me say one more thing. And Jennifer from Patch did an amazing job of updating and notifying everybody. And of course, I don't know if you know this, but on AOL homepage, all the local Patch important stories are posted. So that was tremendously helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson, do you have a motion?
I do. Pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, ILCS 120/2A, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding security and minutes. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. These exceptions are 5 ILCS 120/2A, C8, and C21.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.